The town of Farmington. Respecting history, planning the future.
Calling the town council meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Chris, would you lead us through?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Because it bears repeating, since we're in the midst of, again, flu season and we're hearing more about the coronavirus. If you're sick, please stay home. You don't need to join us. Social distancing is the word. Just try and avoid large crowds where you can. Public comment. We're looking to the public for any comments. Anyone who wishes to make a comment, please limit your comments to 5 minutes. State your name and address. Seeing none. Moving on to item D. Consider and take action on the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget.
So tonight we'll start. The order is going to be a little bit out of order, so just to let you know. I figured we'll have the department heads start coming in now. We're going to start with Rose Ponte, our Economic Development Director. We'll work probably till close to 6 o'clock, and then we'll have sandwiches for dinner. We'll then keep on going. We're going to try tonight. I think our objective is to get through all the departments and then also move on to the revenues and the grants section. So then by Saturday, the only thing we really had to do is kind of just have some discussion, and we'll have made it through the entire budget. So that's the plan for this evening. Historically, we don't take any real action items, but what we do is that if you look in your budget books, we usually TA pages, and so we'll go section by section, and then Peter, I guess you'll make a motion. I'll tell you what the page numbers are, and it'll be a motion to TA pages 1 through 17. And then I'll give a brief synopsis of what is going on in those pages. If you have any particular questions about any of them, we'll talk about it. If for some reason we want to come back to a particular item or a page, let me know, and we'll make a running checklist of them. And at the end, we'll come back to anything that we want to look at or discuss further. That's usually a good system. Does that work for you?
Seems like it would work. Everybody
Okay.
good with that?
All right, good. And so we're going to start with Rose. I'm going to move down there. And Peter, you should probably make your motion. And Anna is taking notes for us tonight. And so here we go.
The motion to consider and take action on the proposed fiscal year 2020-2021 budget.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right,
Motion
so
passes.
Rose Ponte is here, and let me see what pages we are on for her. 1 second. We have page 14 and 15, and we're all working off of this book right here, so you know. So page 14 and 15. And Rose usually likes to give a little introduction, and so I'll turn it over to you, Rose.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be with you again. You'll notice that at each of your places, I'll give you the folder that we created actually last year. And the Economic Development Commission worked long and hard on it. We used a local Farmington company to help us, Journey Communications. And we developed a brand, which is Live, Work, Play, Prosper. You'll notice that a lot of other towns use Live, Work, Play, but we have Prosper. If you open up your folders, you'll see that there are pages for each of those items. And we designed it in a way so if, for example, a large employer may be calling me because they're having an employee fair that they're trying to attract some workforce, they might say, Rose, can you give me the work on Live and the work on and the page on work? And so these pages can be used either as a group or singularly. And one of the best parts about it is that we can internally update these pages, and then it doesn't have to be a huge expense because these numbers do change quite quickly. So these numbers were current as of last year, and already this year we will be updating them because, for example, our medium selling price of a home has gone up and things of that nature. So they're going to be very easy to keep current, and they have varied uses. So I thought that you'd like to see a copy of that, and that kind of brings me into one of the initiatives that the Economic Development Commission had over the last couple of years, and that's really to connect, cultivate, and collaborate with our community. How do we build an ecosystem where our community knows what types of businesses are here, our businesses understand what type of resources we have, and how do we make it all work? Because many of you may not know this statistic, but although our population is a little bit over 24,000, every day that population swells by over 34,000 people who work in Farmington Monday through Friday. So when you start looking at those numbers, you start to realize how important the business community is to our residential community and vice versa. In fact, if you look at our grant list, 32.8% of the tax revenue we receive comes from our commercial businesses or commercial properties. So that really takes a burden away from the homeowner. So all the services are not on the backs of the homeowners, and instead it is shared very nicely with the business community. So just to finish off about our program and communicating and engaging with the business community, this past fall, Kat and I worked on then bringing up our website so that it coordinates with these pictures and colors and brands. And so we created Choose Farmington. So we have Explore Farmington, which I hope you're all familiar with. It's that lifestyle platform that talks about all the different events that are in town and things that are happening. It's a great communication vehicle. So we have Explore Farmington, and now we have Choose Farmington. And people who are looking at our town website, if they choose economic development, they are automatically navigated to Choose Farmington, or you can find choosefarmington.com on your own. So it's a great additional resource. I recommend that you go and you visit that website. It has business resources there, data, demographics, and also it highlights all the different programs that are available for businesses to take advantage of. So now with Live, Work, Play, Prosper, those are our taglines, but then the Economic Development Commission is also looking to explore Farmington, choose Farmington, experience Farmington, connect with Farmington. So that continues to build on what we're trying to do so that we everything we're doing is a lot more transparent, and everything we do is engaging, not only for our businesses, but our community. And we think that it's really bearing some fruit. We have been doing weekly emails that are very well received by the community. We use them even yesterday to talk about the coronavirus updates, and we use them to talk about different events that may be happening. So we have more and more people signing up for those emails all the time. We also have consistently posted on Facebook and Instagram. Again, more and more vehicles to engage with our community in all different platforms. We find that's very important. So with that, we ask ourselves, so is it working? Are we really connecting? Are we still growing? So I thought I'd give you a little tour of Farmington. And if you start off in our growing industry, it's really up on Farmington Avenue by the Yukon Health Center. And that is where we're seeing growth, not only in the public sector through Yukon and Yukon, the Technology Incubator Program, which has over 35 innovative startups that has over 100 employees, and already a couple of those startups have grown, left that little incubator, and have opened offices right in Farmington. But most importantly, the private investment of Metro Realty, one of our top 10 taxpayers, They have just finished building 2 additional buildings, medical office buildings, and they have built now the largest medical office campus in the state of Connecticut. Just this year alone, they finished a 25,000 square foot outpatient surgery center, which is totally leased. And in a couple of months, you'll notice that the 50,000 square foot Connecticut Children's Medical Center will be finished. They've already been approved for an additional building that is going to start being constructed next year, and that's 65,000 square feet. So that area really is an area where we see a lot of growth, and we also have over 10,000 visitors per week in terms of patients who are coming to these different medical facilities, and we also have our largest employer there, UConn Health. So that area continues to grow, and we continue to see that there is more room for growth there. As you kind of travel down and you go into the village, you'll notice that last year we finished the condominiums, the PAC group, finished those condominiums, they're new. And on the town side, we've been really trying to study the Parsons property to see what we need to do to really understand how marketable is that property and what would be the best use of that property in the future for our community. So we've been studying that and trying to figure those things out, and those studies are ongoing, but we are getting closer and closer to figuring that out. In the village, we also spent a lot of time last year trying to come up with a streetscape master plan to make sure that we have good pedestrian connectivity, and that again, that was completed last year, and we're looking to see how we're going to phase that in the coming years. But the village has also seen quite a bit of growth. We have a brand new Collinsville Bank that just opened up, 2,500 square feet pad in front of the Highland Park Market. We have a new owner of the Epicure Plaza. I call it Epicure Plaza, but it's where Starbucks is and all of that. And he's going to be doing some very nice improvements over there. We have also seen some nice renovations of older offices that, for example, Stylish Impressions just totally, it used to be a store that sold wedding gowns and prom dresses, and that's totally been redone. And there are offices there, and then the building adjacent that used to be the Irish store and also Tasha's Tailoring, that's also been purchased and is up for total renovation, again, for more offices. If you continue on that road and kind of sneak up to the Five Corners, I hope all of you have seen the Five Corners Plaza. That is totally leased. That was completed this year, and across the street, the former Stonewall Restaurant, which had been vacant for a number of years, has totally been renovated, and a new restaurant in its place, Five Corners Bistro. If you continue then on Colt Highway, all the way down, we had an empty GMN Spindle building for the past 3.5 years, and that has been totally renovated and is now housing a Thomaston Savings Bank and 220 climate controlled storage units, 19 storage garages, and it's really been well done by a local developer, Jim Calciano, and he's done a very nice job of rehabbing that building and not only bringing in Thomaston Savings Bank, but making that kind of a little bit of a blighted building look quite beautiful. Also in that manufacturing center that we have, we've had a couple of manufacturers expand and do some really nice expansion projects. Trump just celebrated their 50th anniversary, and as you continue on, Texas Community College, you may have read in the press release last week, they did acquire one of our buildings, and they're going to be putting there an advanced manufacturing center, which will really be a wonderful asset to our manufacturers, because when I visit our manufacturers, they really are challenged trying to find the skilled workforce that they need. So this advanced manufacturing center will be a big asset for our businesses there. So other new things that happened this year, we have Apricots being totally renovated into the Wooden Tap, and then in the former Wooden Tap location, we have Toro Loco, which gives us more eateries. The old Cure restaurant has been replaced by Pomona Pete's, and it just is some new, smaller businesses that are also thriving. Surrey Liquors closed, and they became Oak Barrel Fine Wine and Spirits. And in the former Surrey Liquors, we have another local businesswoman, Kathleen Januzzi, who opened up the Trunk Show. So those are all signs that when we have an empty storefront, it quickly gets filled up again, which is also a very good sign. What we look for next year, we're looking at a possible project at the Midpoint Development, which was a new zone that was created. So we're looking to see if that happens. The former, it was a piece of property also by the Yukon Health, which was owned by the Farmington Baptist Church, and that has just closed. So we'll probably anticipate some new development there. There is a tract of land right next door to the new assisted living that also opened in 2019, and that is already approved for some residential. So there is still quite a bit of projects that we're working on for the coming year. So with that, I figured I'd let you guys ask me any questions that you may have. My budget itself is totally in line with my goals. So if you look at my goals, they are representing Farmington in state, local, and regional events. So if you look at the current expense, those are mostly made up of memberships to various organizations. Last year, I attended over 50 different organizations representing the town of Farmington. Current expense really is all those memberships in those organizations and the travel to different areas. We are members of the Metro Hartford Alliance, and that has its own line items. And then under contractual services, we do have a yearly fee that we pay for Explore Farmington. We also have a yearly subscription fee that we pay for CoStar software, which is a software I use to give me all the different reports and understand the available commercial property that's on the market. And then we also have money set aside for Small Business Resource Series. Last October, we had 40 small businesses, and we had a seminar so that they best understood how they can use social marketing to the best of their advantages, and we are planning on another one in the coming fall. So that is an overview of everything. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So Rose's budget again is on page 14 and 15. Okay, so to start, maybe if Peter, if you would do a TA to approve pages 14 and 15.
Should I read the amounts or just the page numbers?
No, just a TA for pages
Okay.
14 and 15.
I make a motion to accept page 14 and 15 of the Economic Development Department.
Second.
Discussion. This is where we ask questions.
So as Rose said, her budget is basically flat. They do an awful lot with the money that we give them. As you can see, I think that Rose is doing a great job, the economic development for us. There's a ton of stuff going on in Farmington. I think we have a lot to be proud of. And Rose and your group, between our new brochures and the website, they're really the leading edge on some of these new initiatives that we're doing. And then, of course, our business breakfasts have become well-known in the state of Connecticut. And I think all of you have been to Rose's breakfasts.
Chris?
Yeah, Rose, you may not be able to answer this question, but how do we dovetail, or what's our strategies with regard to economic development and reaching out to make Farmington a community for younger folks, millennials, and to make it more attractive for younger families or singles? Too. Individuals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's actually something that's very important, and we actually had that as one of the goals coming here. Brian Connolly and I worked together for many years.
Okay, Brian brought it up. I sort of take your thunder, Brian, but he brought it up at an earlier meeting. Yeah, so.
Yeah, something that, because one of the other things I do is I conduct business visitation. And so I try to visit different companies to really understand what are their challenges, what are their opportunities. And almost every time I visit, whether it's a manufacturer or a technology company, they say that is their most difficult thing, is to attract the young people, the young workforce. And when I asked them, where are you having trouble? They said, well, we can match really good salaries, we have great opportunities, but we can't make Farmington as cool to a young person as New York City or Boston, which makes total sense. And so they said, if you can work on having the type of housing that they find attractive, if you can work on making sure that there are events and things of that nature. So with that type of input, that's kind of the catalyst that had the Economic Development Commission try to get the word out that our quality of life, because that is something that we have wonderful quality of life. In fact, Trump said one of the selling points that they do when they have a candidate that's really, really, they want that candidate, and he happens to be a young candidate, they take him on a tour, not of Trump, of our trails. And they say that those trails have sold a couple of, have been able to close the deal. So with that in mind, that's what we've been trying to do. We've been trying to really talk to developers who are interested in creating the type of housing that we need to attract those young people. We're trying to really make sure all our events and all of that are being communicated and are getting to the right hands. And then we've already started working because we do have quite a bit of young people who are returning to Farmington. And the best example I can come up with is Albert Tomaso. He's come back and is helping run Tungus Country Club. And he actually called me and he said, Rose, can you help us get together a group that can help, because I'm lonely. I need other people that are my age. So between the new goal and also Farmington Chamber has now merged with Central Chambers, and they have a group called Pivot. So I'm working with Cindy Bombard, their executive director, to try to make sure that we're a part of all that, and we start putting together kind of a working committee is how we see that we might start, of young people who are already here, and having it come a little bit through a grassroots to get them vested. And hopefully all those things start coming together. But it has to, when I talk about building that ecosystem, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, thank you.
I do have one question for you.
Yes.
And it's on the Metro Hartford membership that we have.
Yes.
Now, I see the value in us being there, and you do a great job of really engaging with industry and people around the state through these engagements,
Yes.
through these different organizations. But are you finding that they are being responsive to our needs and requests?
Well, I think they are, especially because, I want to get our money's worth. So I make it a point to, get involved. You're only going to get out of something as much as you're willing to put into it. So I'm now a member of their health council. So they have an economic development monthly group that is meeting, which is very important because we have a very thriving bioscience industry. So this group meets every month, and they're trying to connect the medical industry, which is big business, with economic development. And so I'm a part of that group, and I just try to make sure that I'm constantly trying to take advantage of that membership that we have. And then if we ever run into any type of situation, for example, once a year, as part of our financials, Joe will say, Rose, tell me who the 10 largest employers are in town, different things that we need for different grants and things of that nature. And that's usually not an easy number to find, believe it or not. And so Metro Hartford Alliance pays to have these types of different services for its members. So that's really, one of those calls almost pays for the membership.
So we're seeing value for money. It's not just money out, it's actually value for what we're getting.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah.
It wasn't always that way, but I'm glad to see that you've turned that around and that you do that through engagement. So
Yeah, it has to be done through engagement, and I think they are doing a good job trying to, but their approach is really looking at the whole region. And so a lot of times if they have someone that they think might want to move into the region, it's do we have the capacity? Do we have the building they're looking for? And so it's not that they're not looking at Farmington. We may be totally full, which is not a bad thing. But they're well aware of, they have one of these packets. I'm always communicating with them. So I think that's the best we can do for that membership.
Rose, the research triangle, I think that's what it's called, isn't it?
Yes.
Farmington, Yale, and UConn stores.
Yes.
Where are the strengths there? Is Farmington taking the lead on that? Where's everything shifting to right now in that triangle, so to speak?
It's curious you should ask that, because currently, this current administration is starting to create policy, and they feel that all their interests would best be served if they continue funding bioscience in the New Haven area.
Really?
They are of that area. The DECD commissioner, he's from that area. BioCT, which is a professional bioscience organization, is out of Yale and out of New Haven. So, excuse me, the push is there. So that's where these alliances are important. I've been meeting with Jackson Labs, and we have a working group we've put together with Metro Hartford Alliance. And what we're trying to do is make sure our legislators are educated and understanding, look, there is a bioscience cluster in New Haven, but there's one that's just as important in Farmington. But it's a little bit right now, it has never been like that before, that there was kind of a competitiveness. We're such a small state, it really shouldn't be. So we are really working on that very diligently, and especially we've been doing an awful lot of work since January on exactly that topic, because that's when the new administration has come up with their economic development strategy for the whole state.
Yeah.
And they've named New Haven as kind of the lead, and we just don't want to be forgotten.
So kind of politics has entered that thing there to try and push the business here, but then Farmington practically sells itself for a business person who sees, we'll say, the benefits of Farmington versus Yale for numerous reasons or whatever. Was another part of that, and I'm thinking of the big picture, how Farmington is looked upon. Do you see this kind of feedback? Wasn't part of that potential triangle something down in the Carolinas? Wasn't there a big bio research area there that kind of coordinated with this research? Does it put our name on the map in a bigger picture that they look to this area?
Well, what puts our name on the map, because I spoke to a couple of scientists and asked them, what makes you go from one place to another, and they follow the research dollars.
Yeah.
And so that becomes very important, because UConn has been doing a great job of getting those research dollars, and that's why our technology incubator program is so important, because they're doing an awful lot of grant writing and research dollars. So that still puts us on the map. And then, of course, Yale is also doing their fair share of research dollars. So that's really, what drives it. What type of work are they doing? But I think it behooves the state to still look at all our bioscience in the state, and not just try to look at one area. So I think it's our responsibility to make sure they're aware of that.
Yeah. Thanks, Rose.
Other questions?
Ed?
Thanks.
Thanks for your presentation, Rose. There's a lot of exciting things going on in Farmington. With the Advanced Manufacturing Center program being developed at Tunxis, are you going to be working with Metro Hartford Alliance and other relevant organizations to possibly attract manufacturers from other countries?
Well, they're already doing that. Metro Hartford Alliance that's a big push for them, trying to attract. They're working with companies in Germany and Israel, just to name two. There's a big contingency of Brazilian companies. And our biggest problem, or it's not really a problem, our limitation maybe is that we have almost 2 million square feet of industrial manufacturing space, and there's only a 2% vacancy. So we don't really have a lot of capacity to bring in more companies. The companies that we have, though, are so important, and they're growing. And that's a very good sign because they are adding on to their buildings. They're constantly meeting with us. And so, again, it just shows the strength of where we are. But that advanced manufacturing center is really going to help because it allows the businesses to have the employees they need and have them trained. And it also helps because we've connected our high school with Tunks's so that there is synergy there. So if any of our high school students are interested in manufacturing, then to make sure that everybody is aware that it's right here in our backyard.
I actually just have one more question.
Any other questions down at this time?
I got one more too.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Brian,
Ron.
go.
Well, Rose, could you talk a little bit about the impact of our mill rate on the businesses who are in Farmington and who choose to come to Farmington?
Yeah, our mill rate is, we have this second lowest mill rate in the Hartford region. So out of the 28 towns in the Hartford region, the only one who's lower than us is Windsor Locks. And so that mill rate is very, very important because we don't give any incentives to our businesses to move here. Our philosophy is that if everybody has a low mill rate, everybody benefits. And so I like to tell businesses who ask me, what are you going to do for me if I move here? And I tell them your incentive is built into your July 1st tax bill. And so that's a great thing to say. I want to be able to keep saying that. And so it is very important. When you ask Metro Realty why they're so successful and they're 100% leased, they tell us that the lower tax rates allow them to have lower lease rates than in West Hartford or neighboring towns. So it does make a difference.
Peter?
Update on Farm Springs where UTC is.
Yes.
Are any of those buildings vacant now that UTC?
No.
They're still all UTC
Well, remember,
occupied?
one of the things that happened is that UTC and Otis separated.
Right, yeah.
All the things that used to be done under UTC umbrella, now there's going to be a lot of duplication because now Otis
Right.
needs their own accounting department, their own legal, their own. So now Otis had to do quite a bit of hiring so then as Peter Holland, who's my UTC contact, has always explained to me, UTC is a very large company. At any given time, they might be moving people, but they have a huge investment and they love their Farmington campus. So if there might be some shuffling going around, I know we've all heard that 100 of their higher leaders are going to be moving to Massachusetts. As Peter has always said, he can't promise, but with all the different shuffling that they have all around the world, they always look and see where they have some property and use it up.
Yeah, well, that's my question, is that they're going to divide them up to Carrier and Otis and Pratt. So now that I think they're just about separated out from it, but they're still staying, they're still keeping core
yes.
administrative headquarters here in Farmington.
Absolutely. And I try to keep, a great connection with them. And just last week, Peter called me and he gave me the contact on who's going to be my contact over at Otis because that is, becoming, formalized and completed.
So
I
this is
think
all good news, at least right
For
now.
now, yeah. It
They're
could
not making
change at
any
any time, of
dramatic
course.
changes in
Right.
locations.
Exactly.
Great.
Thank you, Rose. It's, you do a great job. I love the brochure here. You're the great face forward. I've been to the ribbon cuttings and met some of the people coming in, and it's always nice to see people who have been presented with our best foot forward. And you do a
Thank
great
you.
job.
That means
So
a lot
thank
to
you.
me.
So on the table, moved and seconded to tentatively approve page 14, 15. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you, Rose.
Bye.
The police department won't know there's a road directly. Well,
Yes, yes. Yep.
so we're going to be on pages 31 through 41. So everyone knows Chief Paul Melanson, so welcome.
I don't have any handouts like Rose. Sorry, I didn't know that was a.
You can give a tour like she.
You know.
As long as you're not here to, as long as you're not here to arrest any of us.
Yeah, then that's okay. Right?
So maybe we can start with the motion for pages 31 to 41.
I make a motion to approve, tentatively approve pages 31 through 41 of the police budget.
Second.
So the police department budget, I'll just have some areas to note. One thing that I want to make sure everyone is aware is that for the new people is that when our contracts are not settled, the money that is for the contract goes into an account in the general administration. And then when that money, the contracts are settled, it goes back into the individual budget. So in this case, the police department's payroll is from budget to budget. It's actually 2 years' worth of increases. So when you're looking at the personnel cost, you'll probably see why it looks very high. It's because from budget to budget, you're actually showing 2 years of increases, not 1 year of increases. So because the police department budget wasn't settled at that time. So the contract wasn't settled. The other thing, really, the police department budget is relatively, it's flat or some reductions in it. The one item I did want to make note of is that we did make a reduction, that we have been doing a pretty good job of our vehicles and our replacement plan. And we did make a cut of one vehicle replacement plan generally calls for an unmarked vehicle to be purchased every year. This account also leases, and we took that out of the budget based on the budget target. So I did want to make note of that. Not the end of the world, but it is a little bit disappointing when we have been doing a really good job of keeping up with the maintenance plan on all the vehicles. So something that maybe to talk about later on, that we did take that out of the budget. And maybe, Joe, if you could remind me what that dollar amount would be? 20,000. So that was that.
$20,000
Total. But what was cut out?
total 20,000 is cut out.
Oh.
Okay, so 20,000.
For that particular vehicle.
Yes, yeah, okay. And
I'm sorry, no,
I,
5,000.
yeah, I'm sorry, I was like.
I wasn't going to get in an argument here.
Yeah, we lease, yeah.
I'll argue later.
I was like,
You're picking.
gosh, you should never ask
They have
a
a total
question you
budget
don't
to
know
worry
the
about, right?
answer to. I'm like, woo.
So because we lease them, right, we do the 4 years, $5,000 a year. So 5,000 was cut out.
Yeah, 5,000, thank you.
Thank you.
Whew. Anyway, so I don't know if, Paul, if you want to just maybe give a little synopsis of the budget, any comments that maybe would be interesting for the council?
Yeah, so really, the only thing you'll notice in the budget is, so a year ago, we made a reorganization of the police department. We switched around a sergeant into a lieutenant, made a patrolman take a sergeant spot, and we kind of realigned based upon an assessment that had been done took about a little over a year of our needs. School safety was a big one. Emergency management, what you're seeing now, was a big one. So we needed to have a lieutenant in charge of those things. And we reshuffled. We did not add any positions, but we reshuffled who was in charge of who and where they lied. And so in this budget, you'll see some great differences because 4 people were moved from one line item to another. There were no additional personnel added at the end of the day. It's exactly the same. As a matter of fact, the only reduction I think that we have is one school crossing guard position. So,
Which was that was our.
And that was something that we did because they started busing to a certain area in town that before did not have busing. and required a crossing guard. And once they started the busing to that area, that crossing guard position wasn't needed.
So you'll see in the different accounts that maybe you had a certain amount of patrol officers or sergeants, and then it changed, and then in the other one. But really, like Paul said, there's no change of staffing in it. It's just that we've restructured from the time. This is the restructured of the year showing it now of what we did. So I thought maybe if you had any specific questions on 31 to 41, and then if you do, we'll answer those. And then Paul and I have just a couple of things we'd like to talk about too, but we'll stick with the specific budget first.
Just one question. So you expanded the department, not expanded the department. You had to divide it up into different sectors because of responsibilities that were too broad for one person to handle, the scope of command or whatever you want to call it.
Right. Right.
Okay.
That's yes. So
what was the driver on that? What put you over the top where you had to move the bodies around, so to speak?
So because what was happening was we used to have one school resource officer, now we had three, plus the mandates, right, that have occurred with schools since Sandy Hook and that sort of thing. So we had a major emphasis on our schools, and before, it used to fall under a sergeant to review under certain levels, and the superintendent and myself were working on a lot of things together, and so it made it much easier having a lieutenant who answers basically to me,
to you,
rather than having fourth party go through. And so we had missing kids issues. We had certain things that, a sergeant was going to a lieutenant, the lieutenant to the captain to me, and then at the same time I was on the phone with, the superintendent greeter. And so we needed to streamline those things and the importance of a superintendent runs a division, so he has more personnel at his disposal. So when we had issues at the schools, we were able to draw from other personnel to bring them in there, be it the detective division or that sort of thing.
Got it. Thanks.
And it's also, Peter, the same sort of thing. We may be having it now. We're living it.
No, we are.
But it's same thing with the emergency management.
Yeah.
At the level of the emergency management was at a lower level, and that we're getting to a one before that you need to have a higher level person that has direct contact to Paul, that we can just facilitate things.
Yeah, it streamlines the communication flow of information.
Exactly.
Right.
So we just restructured where our resources were going.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Just going back to the crossing guard that was removed and now there's busing there. Just so we're aware, what's the location of that took place?
That was on Route 4 and Elm Street, I believe was the location. Mm-hmm. So that other side of Route 4, there used to be a small road there that they did not have busing. They had to walk, and then the school changed that where they allowed busing there. So that was the location.
Great, thanks.
Chris? I know, Paul, when we went on our tour, the communications and dispatch center, we do share those services with Burlington, right? I mean, but it's grant funded, is it not? Or can you just go over that a little bit for me in terms of potential cost savings with Burlington and other communities?
Right. So so on a statewide, everybody's heard of regionalization. One of the greatest things that they keep talking about are these dispatch centers, communication centers. And so on behalf of the chiefs of police for the state of Connecticut, for the last 5 years, I've been up there testifying on behalf of regional dispatch centers. So a regional dispatch center is somebody who dispatches for more than just their municipality. When you become a regional dispatch center, it opens up more funding, grant funding. So everybody on their cell phones, on their landlines, has a surcharge, an E911 surcharge. All of that money goes to the state. The state then provides all the equipment for the E911 system. So they have text to 911 and all that. So we recently upgraded all the E911 system. The state pays for all of that equipment. But they also every year give us money from that because we dispatch for Burlington. They give us a larger sum of money than if we were just doing Farmington. We also have had conversations with several other municipalities about potentially doing their dispatching. And I don't want to get into the weeds of it, A big detractor from that is having a dark station. In other words, their dispatcher is the only one in their station after 4:30. So many times. So if you went to,
That wouldn't be us. That
no,
would
no,
be-
no, no. That would be right somewhere else.
Yeah.
But that's one of the downfalls from regionalization, which doesn't make it as easy, right? But we have offered to dispatch for more municipalities, and the funding this year they've redone some of the funding, and it looks like we'll actually be getting even more through the grant funding than we were getting. And we get paid from Burlington.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
I have one. Go ahead,
Right.
Brian. I'll wait.
Just for clarification for me, because I don't know the answer to this, and maybe Kat, this might be more of a question for you, but I see under the community special projects.
Could you tell
we
me
have-
what page?
Yes, 33.
Yep, thank you.
Sure. We have for special projects officers for the high school and resource officers. And I wasn't sure if that was also included under the school budget. And I see it included here. I don't know. Is it under the school budget or is it under here?
It's under here.
It's under here. Okay, I was just
Yep,
curious.
Yep, it's under here. The officers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know if the school was paying for it, if it was part of this budget.
No, the actual officers are paid, but the school does have, people that, security monitors
Right.
and things like that. That's under the school, but our police officers are paid through our budget.
Okay, I was just
Yeah.
curious for clarification.
Yep, good,
Thank you.
thank you.
Joe?
Chief, is there still mandates from the state for video holding from cruisers, from officers and counties and stuff?
Yes.
You have to follow. Is it expanding?
So it's not expanding, but it has remained the same of how long, and depending on the type of call it is, depends on how long you have to maintain that video. Yeah. So, which has been, under capital, I know that, body cameras is something everybody's talking about, and maintaining the body cam footage and the FOI ability of people to request body cam footage has been it's interesting. There are a lot of places that have gotten it and then now have gotten rid of it because of the cost of it. So some people are paying $1 million a year just for the storage and of the video, which is, substantial. So, yeah, but they still have those requirements on maintaining it and how long we maintain it.
Are we looking at any upgrades to our camera system currently, or is that state funded?
So it is not state funded. We're talking the in-car system, WatchGuard. So every year all of our police cruisers, because we do not have body cams, all of our police cruisers that are the 24/7 cruisers have WatchGuard cameras in them. And those are, WatchGuard is just the in-car mounted cameras. And we slowly upgrade them as, we've had them now for 9 years. And so, we've already begun replacing some of those through that capital budget. And because they've become obsolete and that sort of thing. But we've stayed up on that, and we currently always stay up on that. So actually our officers, most of them, if it's not working, the car is sidelined because that's how much they want the in-car videos. So.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Chief, could you talk a little bit about the opioid epidemic, and in terms of, are we seeing an increase in the number of overdoses that you guys are making contact with, or is that staying relatively flat, or how is it trending?
Oh no, it's trending upward. It's stabilized a little bit this year for us, but when I say stabilized, I mean we're seeing double the numbers that we saw 5 years ago, right? And it is but for Narcan, the amount of deaths would be substantially higher. So all our officers now carry the Narcan, and we use it. I'm going to just say 7-8 times a year that we're able to save people because of it. But we also have our overdose deaths every year, and several of them. So I think it has, and when I say the deaths have stabilized, we go to places where they actually have Narcan. So It's people who are addicted to opioids and overdose, and they have friends who they're prescribed now Narcan from their doctors, and they can Narcan themselves, or obviously not Narcan themselves, but they Narcan their friend and that sort of thing. So the deaths, I think, have stabilized in that sense, but it's still a crisis across the country.
Yeah, it's still a big challenge.
Yes.
Other questions? Well, Chief, thank you. In calm times, go ahead.
Yeah, are you asking a question? Because I was.
No, go ahead.
Okay, one of the things that we just wanted to briefly talk about and not go into it because have a long debate about it, but I did tell the chief that I would mention it. If you do see in the chief's budget, you did recommend how many additional patrol officers this year?
4 additional patrol officers.
And one of the things that people that have been on the council before and we've heard is that we have always run a very, very slim police department. And our philosophy has been that, and that we do take on a lot of overtime because of that. But it's a balance. And because you have to hire quite a few officers to make a difference in your overtime. But what's been happening, and one of the things that we're seeing, and we saw it during our contract negotiations, is that you just have a different, I wouldn't call it a culture, a different philosophy with our officers, is that in the old days, people would take as much overtime as they could. And at this time, a lot of the officers, and it's not Farmington, it's all over, everyone's struggling with it. They're not as interested in the overtime. And what is happening is that in our contract negotiations, all they're asking for is different benefits that relate to having more time off. And it's because we are having to order our officers in more often because no one's volunteering for the overtime. So you wind up ordering people in, and you can do that to a certain extent, but Paul is doing a whole synopsis of what's the comparison that we're actually ordering the people in comparison to last year, the year before. And it does cause personnel problems, it causes issues, and we've talked about it because we've always been very slim on how many officers we have, but it's something that we're studying. That's one of the goals that Paul and I are doing over this year, because we're getting to a point where we're going to have to probably look at increasing our staffing for the police department. And like I said, Paul has never put in his budget to put in 4 new officers. And so it is something that I think I just want everyone to be aware of. And Paul, if you want to just say, it's not just Farmington, but it is Farmington because we do run we don't have a lot of employees.
Right. So anytime somebody takes a day off, it's filled with an overtime. So we're very streamlined. So I'll give you an example from West Hartford, where I came from, where you had a squad of 20 people. If somebody took a day off, you had 3 people filling in, right? They were already scheduled to work. And if you were full complement, you just had additional officers on the road to be able to do traffic enforcement and those sorts of things. So you had a little bit of a cushion. People wanted vacation time, right? You had a little bit of a cushion. Farmington's not like that. Farmington we are day-to-day minimum. So you want a day off, we have to hire. And so what Kathy was alluding to is in contract negotiations, a lot of times the union brings up the fact that they can't, number one, get time off, because if I just wanted one day, right, like I'm not guaranteed that, because if I have to force somebody to work it, so I have to get somebody to work for me. And then if I'm taking a whole week off or we have sick time or injury, then we're forcing or ordering people to work. And so our numbers are very high. Back 10, 11, 12 years ago, that wasn't a problem because people liked working a lot of overtime. And we've talked, obviously, about reasons for that. But now you see a lot of times the overtime is not what drives them, right? They want to do their 8 hours, not 12. And so it is a personnel type thing, and keeping the morale up and keeping when you're denied days off and those sorts of things. And we've had some very long-term injuries, significant injuries, which then takes that. So now every day I'm hiring for that person, right? So anyway, it's just and that's why I think we've talked about it, and it's one of the things I think that we're really going to focus on in this upcoming year.
And the other thing is too, there's always different approaches. We have officers, but we have how many officers in the schools? So those school officers are in the three in the school. We have special projects officers at West Farms Mall. You could take those officers and bring them in so you didn't have to order, but then you don't have those service levels anymore. So again, we have made choices to have, and we've always had the special projects, the officers in the schools. We've had West Farms Mall. We've had the different things. So again, Paul is trying to do an analysis of how many officers of our type of community with our calls of service, what is the benchmark that you should really be having? And I will tell you from my experience, I'm sure we're low because we've always had the philosophy of using the overtime because in the long term, having more employees, we felt it was beneficial to have overtime instead of the long-term liability with more employees with the pensions. And so that has been our philosophy. That philosophy is starting to shake a little bit. And so just want everyone to be aware of it. We are studying it, and we're going to see what goes on. And I think it is important to note and that, Paul did put 4 extra people that were all cut out of the budget.
Yeah. And, the only one that probably we couldn't put back in patrol right now because we have a contract is the West Farms Mall officer, right? Because they reimburse us for that officer 100%. So that's the only one. But the school resource officers, the minute school's over, they all return back to patrol because that's obviously the summer months, which help with the vacations and those sorts of things so that people can get their vacations. And so, it's not like we just then keep them off to the side. They come back into patrol. Our K-9 officer was pulled back into patrol years ago to help with this issue. Anyway.
So, just vice versa. So if one of the officers in the school takes a vacation day or is on vacation, then you backfill that with a patrol officer, or does it?
No.
No one goes in.
No, those we don't
have
backfill.
the qualifications or the certs. I don't know.
No, we don't backfill them. What we do is we would take of the 3, we'd have the other one cover the school. The only one that we really focus on, and we've had before, is if the high school officer is in training for a week, we will fill that with somebody because the high school can't be left without an officer there. We may take one of the others from the lower level schools and put them into the high school, but somebody has to fill the high school spot.
So in essence, if you did do that, though, you'd be down 2 officers.
Right.
If you brought someone up,
Yes.
a patrol officer
Right.
with overtime.
Right.
Are we losing people due to the workload?
No, I don't think we're losing people. I like to say that we have a great place to work, and it's because of the people that work there, right? Like it has nothing to do with me. It's the people that work there. We have a great place to work. But there is a sense of frustration, right? When somebody can't get their time off or you're ordered in, right? Like, so Christmas Eve, somebody was ordered in 4 hours early. So they were supposed to get there at 11. Now they can't go to, midnight mass. They can't, whatever. And so those are always frustrating. And I hear about those, frequently. And that is, but they're good. They understand, but that's why I think if there was one thing that we were going to work on in this coming year, that would probably be the one thing.
So morale's good?
Yes. No, morale's good. I think the one thing that you always see is when people are, though, ordered to hold over or, or ordered in early, that's when you start to see so.
And one of the things that Paul and I have talked about is that he's getting me some data. Is it perception or is it reality? Did one person get held over and they're mad and they said a lot of different things, or is it the factual that a lot of people are getting held over and getting ordered in? So we want to do a comparison to see, is it really? And it looks like it very much is. It looks like the data so far, but Paul's going to do a whole study on it to see.
Well, isn't there a whole order of or a list of how you order people in?
Yeah.
It's got to be a process. You just don't say, hey, you're staying.
Yeah, so we have, now it's computerized, but we have a whole system, and it goes by how many times you've been ordered in. So a part of the problem, and I was telling Kathy, was trying to figure orders, and there are hundreds of orders a year. So we're not talking, it happens 5-6 times, right? So looking into it, there's hundreds of them a year where people are ordered. These aren't volunteer. These are they're ordered. The problem with that number is, so I know that that I'm the next one up to be ordered on my squad. Well, what I do is I will maybe volunteer tonight as an order so that I won't get ordered tomorrow night because I have a wedding to go to. You know, so it's interesting how that kind of works, and people used to kind of look at that and say, wait a sec, it's coming up to the weekend. I'm the next to be ordered. I gotta, I better work now. And so it's yeah.
So does that count as an order or not, if they volunteer?
So if you volunteer to take it when nobody else will, then it will count as your order. But that's if nobody volunteers to take it.
Again, just something to put on your radar.
Other questions? Okay, well, thank you again. You do a great job in normal situations, and we appreciate it. We don't notice it as much, but in the times like now, I know you're having a number of added meetings you're all going to with regional, state organizations, so thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. But morale has gone down since Joe left, I will say. That is a given, right?
I would have figured the exact opposite, but
I'll take that.
I just think you did the
Yes.
motion?
Yep. Motion has been made and seconded for pages 31 to 41 for a tentative approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief.
Mr. Arnold? Thanks, Paul. We're going to go to page 54. And that's the engineering department. We're going to go through all of Public Works, but we'll start with engineering on page 54.
Should I make a motion for Public Works or just engineering?
I would do a motion for TA for page 54.
Okay. I make a motion to TA page 54, public engineering.
Second.
So everyone knows Russ Arnold, our Director of Public Works, who is going to talk about engineering, highway, Westwoods Golf Course, and the garbage tonight, correct?
And planning and zoning.
Oh, planning and zoning.
Building, fire marshal.
And fire marshal? Everything.
We don't have to, but I don't think we'll
So,
Look at all those hats.
So on page 54, there are a couple of things I would like to note is Russ does have a vacant deputy public works director right now, and we did not fill that position. So he is down one person. And also, Russ did ask for, I think, was it 3 seasonal people for
Yes.
your waste? And we only put 1 seasonal person in based on the budget target. I would like to say, I think that, and Russ, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we were thinking that the deputy DPW director was probably not the position we'd fill. It would be a civil engineer, which is a much lower level position. And the thought would be, Russ has a really big department. We would like to see if there's any way I can say that if we could put some money more back into the budget for maybe a lower level position. And even if we could do it, maybe not for a full year, do it for a half a year or something along those lines, just so Russ doesn't lose a position. It's a busy department, and we'd like to hopefully keep that in, but again, we can talk about that at the end, but that would be something that I would be interested in talking more about. And also, I think Russ gave a very good synopsis during the Capitol about the stormwater, and we did leave one person in to help out, but if we could maybe put another person in at that to help him do the stormwater, summer help. The thought would be maybe some of these new engineers that are coming in, helping with the stormwater, maybe they would be interested in the civil engineer type of position. So those would be the 2 things on this page, just of if you have any questions.
Questions?
What's the deputy do?
Not too much.
Okay.
Basically, what the position developed into was from a civil engineer, and we promoted it. We had Matt Bloom, then we had Matt Walsh. And basically, they're my right-hand man on top of my other department heads. And they would do the work on the design for our road projects that we apply to CROG for LOTSIP funding. And over the years, we've received probably about $12 million from LOTSIP with all in-house design work. So it pretty much pays for itself to have the position. It's hard finding the person that meets the qualities that, as we went over all the departments that we take care of and we're responsible for, it's hard to find somebody who can step in and take on that role, and it's really a learned behavior. You know, you start off as an engineer and you figure out how we operate, and as Paul said just before, that we run a slim ship. Everyone wears a lot of different hats and takes on a lot of different roles, so that's where this person develops into this type of position. But Matt Bloom and then Matt Walsh were an extension of me, and I was comfortable with them meeting with residents, meeting with CROG representatives, DOT representatives. They understood what our way of thinking is and how we work and get things done with not a lot of people in the background, and we really roll our sleeves up and do the work. So that's where I was kind of, to be honest with you, bummed out when Kathy and Joe said that they were cutting the position out, because the position itself really pays us astronomically.
One of the things is that we've had a couple of different approaches with this. We have had a position, we've had a high-level position like a deputy, and that was like a Matt Walsh and also Matt, our other Matt. But unfortunately, right now it's been vacant for a while before we've put in the budget, is because, we have an engineering shortage in Connecticut, and there's two things that happen. One is that there's very few people to pick from. The second thing is that someone like a Matt Walsh comes in and they only spend a few years because they're qualified to be a director and they move on. We've done it a few other ways where we've tried to start with a lower level position and try to groom them to get up to the higher level and have them stay a while. And after we've gone out a couple of times over the last year to try to fill this, that's why we're thinking that we'd knock back the position and try to get someone that with less experience and try to groom those so they could stay a few more years for us. It really helps Russ, and all his other departments have a director. And what happens with Russ, because Russ is an engineer, the town engineer, is that he's winding up spending his time doing work that a civil engineer could do. And he's doing, and that doesn't leave him time to be managing the entire department. And we have a building inspector, a treatment plant person. Everyone has a department head. And engineering, we've had the deputy director or at least another engineer that can do some of the engineering work. So Russ isn't spending his time doing very basic engineering instead of managing the whole department, and we're busy. So again, we're looking to maybe knock back the position as a civil engineer and have that person grow in the organization.
Questions?
Just out of curiosity, and I'm just curious to know what the software support is for. After seeing the water treatment plant, I'm guessing maybe for that.
No, actually, this is for AutoCAD, our design software, our GIS software.
And that will help you do your work a lot more efficiently.
Correct. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to get the project.
Well, I'm not saying we. I was just curious.
No, just so you know, it's no one hand drafts anymore.
Yeah. Oh no.
Everything's done on a computer, and that's what it's paid for.
Okay. No, I was just curious.
Maybe I should just clarify on that. You're going to see that in a lot of departments, the line for software support and still looking new. What we tried to do this year was people were budgeting software support in various places. Some people had office equipment, some people had contractual services.
Mm-hmm.
So what we tried to do in this budget is make it more uniform so that you'll see it there. And if you look the line just above it, of course, there's a line contractual services.
Mm-hmm.
That line is actually down from what he had for this year. and that's actually the difference.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same for telephone. Everyone's got a telephone, and
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah.
support those folks.
Yeah.
But it's all, I'm just wondering, I'm sure it's all contracted under one big
Yeah,
group thing. It's
yeah.
just broken out
In
per
the
department.
accounts, yep, exactly, Brian.
Thank you. I'm a first timer.
No worries.
No, that's good. I probably should have gave you a basic thing on everyone has the full-time, overtime, telephone, office
Yeah.
supplies, current expense, they're all in each budget, but, so that's how it works.
Okay, thank you.
So how much money are you looking for to fund this for a half a year? Or what are you thinking?
I was thinking about $35,000, and that probably, I think just would get, it, maybe not a half a year, but get into that and see how we're doing with maybe savings and stuff like that. So if we could get it at least a half a year, see how next year goes, and, if he has, some other place that he could save some money, something around there.
Okay.
Russ, you were talking about design work that had been done by the deputy director. If they're not doing it, I assume you're doing some. Is any of that going out and being hired to be done, or is it all done in-house one way or the other?
We try to do everything in-house. We control it ourselves. When you have consultants do it, you lose some control on timing. And we have a GIS draftsman, Frazius Young, who we've worked together now for 15, 16 years, so it's kind of the yin and the yang. He knows what I need, and so I'll sit down with him, go through, and I'll sketch things up. We'll talk about it, and he'll put pen to paper and do things like that. And it's how we roll. We don't like putting it out. It's it's an expense because you're paying someone else to do the work that we're capable of. But there are times, like with the treatment plant, we obviously used a consultant for that. There are times when we will use a consultant, like with the stormwater. We need help with that. But as far as our civil road design projects and things like that, we like to keep them in-house. It's just for the pure control of it.
Sure.
And have learned over the years is that, when we have contracted out some of these jobs, is that it winds up that Russ and company takes them back in and practically redesigns them themselves. And it's a couple of things. Russ has a very high standard of what he wants to see, and that's what I want to see too. And that a lot of the consultants, when they just come in, and not saying all jobs or anything, but it winds up that Russ winds up doing the work himself after we've had the consultant come in, and especially on basic types of jobs, not the technical ones.
When you're in control of your own destiny, I have to face the maker and tell her I didn't meet a deadline. It's not a good thing. No, it's fine. It's good, but like Kathy says, we'll get plans back. We'll tell them what we want. We'll meet with them. And we pay for those meetings at that time. And then we get the plans back, and I end up going through them again to make sure and make changes to get what we've talked about, because that's not how they do things. So it just ends up in the long run saving us time and money.
Thank you.
What about the grants? Do you, or with this person, or is there someone else on staff who does the grant writing for?
We do it. Kat's been helping me on this last one with through Lotsett for the roundabout on South Road.
So if would this person be responsible for that, or
Yes.
would you take that over?
I would be. I'm involved with it as much. They would do more of the nuts and bolts work.
Yeah.
And I'd review it, and it's high level, the higher level, but I let them do the basics, and then we go through and review the whole thing together and get the package in.
So, but ultimately, if you get the grant, it's paid for itself
Right.
a zillion times over.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Like, for instance, the Rails to Trails that we just finished with the bridge over Route 6.
Yeah.
We did 90% of the design in-house. The other 10% was for the bridge that we hired out that was paid for by the DOT. And part of the reason we got that grant was because of our efforts and our relationship with DOT. They knew we could design the project, get it out to bid, and get it constructed in the time frame that they needed it to be done. So we did that, all the trail design, the roadway work, the drainage, everything was designed in-house. We exceeded the deadline, and I always, as with Kathy, if we have to have something done by June 1st, well, we want it done by May 15th.
Yeah.
And that's how we ended up getting that nearly $5 million grant. So
And the
it
other-
pays for itself ultimately.
So we're basically almost like losing money because we don't have that position?
Oh, we'll never lose money, I'll tell you that. But it just,
Good
you know,
answer.
like Kathy
Yeah.
said, we still apply for everything, we go after everything. We
Yeah.
just, I went back to Krog 2 weeks ago and got another nearly $600,000 for the roundabout project, which was a good project. It was a private-public partnership, if you will, with Metro Realty because of their new building going in on Munson and South. Their project exasperated the traffic condition at South and Route 6 and 2 Mile. we had a project that was approved years ago for improvements on Route 6. They asked us to pull it. They would take over the things that we put in for our design. They would take those and incorporate it when they do their paving in 6 to 8 years. I then transferred the money to this project, but I had asked Metro to do the design of the project through a consultant. So we got the construction funding. I'm still reviewing the plans with the consultant as part of the package that goes for the application, and the application was approved, and we're at $1.8 million of construction money. And part of that is working with Metro to make sure, because they're the ones that are coming to the table, but they agreed that this was cheaper in the long run for them to help us with the design, and we will get the construction money.
Right. And one thing, just to to be upfront about everything, is that I talked about in my message, is that your target was very hard to meet because of the pension and some different things, and this position was vacant at this time, so it was easier to not fill it. But if you asked me if this would have been the position that I would have had to get rid of, probably not. And so, again, if the council, Russ and I would still talk about it, but I didn't want to take out another type of position it would be a layoff or something along those lines, and this position was vacant. So again, I would have to think about it, reevaluate it, and say if we were going to keep this one, vacant, we would look at and say, is this really the position that we would keep vacant? Because it's Russ's department is a really busy department, and they need the help. And but again, it was vacant, and because it was vacant, that's why I wanted to, do it that way.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second to tentatively approve page 54. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
CJ, are you guys going to be reevaluating any pages? Are you doing that, or
Yes.
is it something that we would want to keep a list or anything of things to talk about? Yeah.
You can, yes. If you'd like to.
So we're keeping a list if there's something that, can we keep track, or is this a page that maybe you would like to reconsider, or no? If not, that's fine. I'm just saying.
Would anyone like to put this on our list of pages to reconsider?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will say if we have any questions on the police pages 31 to 41 that we want to put on Kathy's list, mention that now. And economic development, 13 and 14. Okay.
The next item, did we have a vote on it? You did a vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So page 43, please.
53 or 43?
43.
53 is highway and grounds. Oh, yeah.
Hold on, let me get you.
Public works.
I make a motion to temporarily approve page 43, highways and grounds operations.
This one is actually
This is-
Public Works and
Public Works.
Development Services Administration.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, we're jumping around.
Yeah, we're jumping around.
Second?
Discussion.
And this is just the administration of the Public Works and Highway and the whole group.
Anything you want to give us before we ask any questions?
Yeah. Nothing on this. This is just the
Okay.
administration.
Any questions on the administration? Page 43. Going once. Motion is on the table to attempt to approve page 43. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
53. The next one is going to be the highway and grounds. It's page 44 to 53.
44 through 53?
Yes, please.
I make a motion to temporarily approve highway and grounds.
Second?
So the highway and grounds is very, very flat. I don't think there's really any changes to note, Kat or Russ.
Been reduced.
It's been nothing significant. It's really just maintaining the services. A lot of what we do in the highway and grounds is looking at averages to see how much our snow plowing is cost, how much, what we pay over a history, and the number is
Overall, the total highway and grounds account is down 1.4%.
Questions for highway and grounds? Seeing none. We have a motion on the table and a second for tentatively approving page 44 through 53. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
No, yeah, where's
Fire
Westwood?
marshal? Fire marshal?
Yeah, what number is that?
26.
Page 26.
26.
Fire marshal.
This is page 26.
Yes, please.
Fire marshal.
Fire marshal.
I make a motion to temporarily approve page 26, fire marshals.
Second?
So this is the fire marshal account. One thing that I always like to mention in this account is that if you look on page 26 on the hydrant charges, this is, we're paying $1,040,000 to our different water companies. This is, I think, by large, probably one of the largest expenditures in this entire budget. And this fee went up quite a bit for our water. And just something to note, I think I wrote in the budget narrative, if I could correct, I think it was what number that this account went up. I think it was.
This is fire marshal?
Yep, in hydrant fees.
Hydrant fees went up 6.8%.
Yeah, and I think it was around $65,000. It's quite it's a very big expense into the budget, so just something to note.
And that's for water?
This is for,
For insurance?
It's insurance, I call it.
basically, we're paying a rental fee on the
Hydrants.
fire lines.
Oh, okay.
Hydrants to provide fire service if there is a fire.
So all the fire hydrants, we have to pay a fee so that we have the fire hydrants and the lines, and so
Right.
we pay that to the water company.
Okay.
And so with the different water companies, so we pay, Connecticut Water is our biggest one, it's 740 hydrants, and then the MDC, we have Avon, Bristol, New Britain, they're smaller ones. So, but it's quite a substantial amount, and especially when it goes up, what did you say,
6.8.
6.8%. So just something to note.
Who is the bulk of the increase of the water companies?
Connecticut Water.
Connecticut Water.
740 hydrants.
Because wasn't the MDC in the news recently raising their rates too?
Yeah, they are, that is a significant rate, but we, fortunately for Farmington, we have very few people
Yeah.
that are on the MDC.
Questions? Are there options other than the renting? I mean, did any towns do anything other than that, or is that just the way it works?
We could have bought the Unionville Water Company years ago.
Okay, other than owning the water company, you're still
No,
getting everything?
this is how everyone pays.
Yeah, okay.
So nothing can be done to streamline or,
No. No.
is this a fact? It is what it is?
It is, yeah, it is what it is.
All right. I think
Anything else to add?
Planning.
Are you doing planning now?
Planning starts on 18.
Okay, there's a motion on the table to tentatively approve page 26, fire marshal. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, not 18, 19. Yeah, the next
42.
42. So again, in Russ's area, he has the fire marshal and also now the building inspector.
This page 42?
Page 42,
Yes, sir.
yes.
I make a motion to temporarily approve page 42, building inspector.
Second.
Really no changes in that. Again, this is a department that, what we talked about in the police department, the Ask Me positions is that it's 2 years of salaries in there from budget to budget. So that's where the increase is.
Questions, comments?
And we're just seeing that same shift of the cost from the contractual to the software again here.
Exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
And this software is for our online building permit. So people can go online instead of having to come in. They can upload and everything online.
How many building permits are you seeing a year?
You had to ask me that one?
It was Chris, but he.
I passed that one down the line.
1,211. Now, we do over 1,000 building permits every year. Every year. No,
Is there a difference in fee from coming in, from doing it on the computer?
No, same.
So same number no matter what?
Same exact.
And they've been steady, or do we
Yeah,
jack up
we-
the rates
no.
due to?
Nothing. We are
Lines.
steady. We are, knock on wood, in the valley, we can't continuously monitor what other towns are doing. And we've been very good with our single homes, single residential homes. We're starting to taper off, but we're still steady, which is good. There are a lot of towns in the valley that are getting 0 homes. So we are very consistent with that. That's one good thing. And I think I like, a plug here for Chris and Steve that a lot of people come and do work because it's a very friendly atmosphere to do the work in. It's not adversarially. There are other towns where you call today and it's a 3-week wait for a footing inspection. And we accommodate people. If somebody calls and needs an inspection, we'll go do the inspection. So we've really bend over backwards to make sure that we're helping people because the majority of the building permits are for our residents. It's contractors doing work on additions or electric service upgrades and things like that. So we do what we got to do to help everybody out.
Any other questions? Have a motion on the table to tentatively approve page 42. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Board of Appeals.
So I think we're going 18, 19, and 20, through 20. This is the Planning Department, the Town Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. So it's 18 through 20.
Make a motion to temporarily approve pages 18 through 20, Town Planning and Zoning Commission.
Second.
This is just flat, really no changes in there.
Questions on these pages? Hearing none, we have a motion on the table to approve tentatively pages 18 through 20. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
We hit all yours.
We're good. Oh, Westwoods.
Westwood was included.
It was in
highway
there,
approvals.
yeah.
It was in the highway.
We're good.
That's it for Russ.
Russ, thank you very much. We appreciate the tour we got. We appreciate everything you do. We appreciate when the leaves are gone, when the snow is gone, and when the roads are paved.
Wait first. We're good this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Russ.
Russ.
Thanks, Russ. You too. Thank you. What page?
Martin.
To do with Joe.
I wanted to ask him if he could take your
Where are we?
I think it's not very nice.
Steve, I think you're next.
Run the seat for me.
Yeah. So everyone knows Steve Hoffman, our Director of Fire and Rescue Services, and his pages are going to be 27 through 30. And what we have. So this is our fire administration, our fire operations, the buildings, and fire equipment, and there is no real significant changes in these accounts. Just to give some, you probably all know, but we have
Make a motion
paid
yet?
fire.
Can we make a motion first?
Oh, I don't know.
I didn't want to interrupt her.
She's on a roll.
I'm not gonna miss a second.
I'll make a motion to temporarily approve pages 27 through 30.
Second.
Okay, we're ready for you now.
Pick up where you left off.
So, as you all probably know, is that we have 9 full-time firefighters. We also have some part-time firefighters, and then they are supplemented by our volunteer workforce. So, really, it's a very flat budget. I don't know if you have any specific questions.
Chris? On page 28, the full-time line item, I just noticed that like last year we budgeted 559,000, our estimated 12 years, 588, and we put in 647 for this coming year. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to that as to...
The increase, and is that the 2 years?
Yeah, this was one of the contracts where they actually didn't have a contract for 2 years.
Ah, okay.
So you basically budgeted for 3 years worth of salaries.
Mhm.
In regards to the projection, the 588, that was based on a projection that they had a vacancy occur for part of the year, so they didn't fill one position, was vacant for about 3 months. So that's basically why that estimate shows lower. But basically, the real reason is the 3 years worth of salary increase is better.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And when we get to general administration, Ed, I'll show you the account where you can see that it had a lump sum of money, and then it'll show you how it's been reduced. And so
Okay.
now it's in all these different accounts.
Great.
For the part-time position?
Yep.
When's that grant run out?
The full-time grant, the SAFER grant?
Full-time, that's funded by a grant?
We're on the second year, the third year. So we have one more year, but on that last year, our cost share is going to increase, and the federal share is going to decrease.
To what portion?
It's 1565, I believe. 1560.
How about technical equipment? What's
What page is that, Peter?
page 30?
We've kept that basically flat.
The same.
Yeah.
Are you,
Well, I'm just general.
what are
I'll
some-
say from
What are some of
years
the items
past.
that you're looking
Sure,
for? Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Pagers and batteries, we're looking to replace some of our older AEDs that are AED LifePak 500s, which are no longer supported, so we're looking to replace those. We're looking to get a new tick for Engine 8. While we got 4 ticks to a grant, we're still looking to get a replacement for one that just recently went out of service. It can no longer be fixed.
Steve, I think only Peter knows what a tick is.
Thermal imaging camera.
Right.
There you go.
We're purchasing pagers and batteries through technical?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
They are usually just allocated $2,500 for replacement parts, and if they can't be fixed, then we replace the whole unit. For the most part, it's really for clips, cases, things that, and obviously batteries.
Okay.
How many ticks do you have currently?
4, townwide.
Townwide?
Yes.
You're looking to replace how many?
Great. In the grant, we gave 1 to East Farms, 1 to Tunxus, and Farmington got 2. Engine 8 is up at East Farms, and the one that was on Engine 8 can no longer be fixed.
Okay.
It's out of service, so they're looking to get another one for Engine 8. Let's see.
Didn't you get a grant through?
Community chest.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chest. All right.
portable lights, and then various rope supplies, traffic safety equipment. We're looking to replace the airbags. The airbags that are on engine 10, they're good for about 25 years. They're actually over their 25-year mark, so they've been taken out of service. Because engine 10 services 84, we're looking to replace those.
Okay.
And airbags help support large vehicles on the highway, tractor trailers if they fall over, helps to stabilize them, lift them, that kind of thing.
Any questions? We have on the table a tentative approval of pages 27 through 30. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Good. The only other thing, just again, I think Steve and company, you remember that we have some potential that we put in our strategic plan about updating the fire stations. And so I think that the fire chiefs and everyone is looking forward to that later on in the year. But as you guys toured the facilities, you saw that some of them, definitely could use some upgrades and things of that nature. So in this budget and in the capital, we didn't include some things that would, because we're hoping that that would be taking place during the upgrades of the fire stations. So just to note that.
Gotcha. Steve, thank you. Appreciate it. And for all the extra work you've been putting in lately, looking forward to whatever we might be having coming up. We appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
See you.
All right. Who are we on now?
Nancy.
Nancy? I think you're next, and didn't have, it's Lori?
Yeah. Oh, okay, I thought the library.
Oh,
No, you're first.
We moved.
Lori's not here yet. Lori Hughes not here.
No.
Lori Hughes, the president of the
Who's
library.
next to her? Who's next?
That's Carolyn.
No, who's next in there? So I just said Nancy and Lori.
I just thought you were looking for Lori in the
No,
library.
just Nancy and Lori. Okay? Yep, okay.
Yeah, I just texted Jeff, so,
Okay.
but I can answer questions anyway. Let me turn off my phone.
So, everyone knows Nancy Parent, and
What page are we going to look at?
we're at 55 through 65. Maybe you meet Lori and tell her what Lori's position.
And we'll make a motion.
Yep.
So I'd like to introduce Lori Muchacharo.
Can we make our motion first?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I tentatively make a motion to tentatively approve pages 55 through 65.
Second.
The floor is yours. Yes.
Now I can introduce her.
Oh, you.
This is Lori Muchacharo, don't ask me how to spell it. She is our supportive supervisor for the social services.
So, a couple of things. This budget is relatively flat. I did want to note, and Nancy maybe can talk about it a little bit, and we mentioned it on the Dial-A-Ride bus, that one of the initiatives that we did do over the last year is that we have taken over the Dial-A-Ride function for the town, and we have seen some savings because we've done that. And maybe, Nancy, briefly, if you can explain what we used to do and how we do it now.
Sure.
I think it's a great initiative.
Yep, no, we had been contracting out for the service, so we had a company who employed the drivers and took over used our buses to be able to drive people to their medical appointments. Now, the drivers are our employees, and we still have a company taking reservations, but then we manage the drivers and are able to manage their routes and everything. And it's actually been a really good savings, economy of scale, as well as just the level of service to be able to pick people up and get them to our programs.
Right.
The other thing, and Nancy, again, because your budget is basically flat, but you guys do quite a bit, and it's a good opportunity maybe just to kind of tell the council briefly some things that go on with social services, because a lot of times I don't think the council knows,
Sure.
all the different things. So
Absolutely.
maybe just kind of give some highlights.
Do you want to give a highlight, or I don't want to put you on the spot? Thank you. So our supportive services provides a lot of the general assistance to assist people to get food for the food pantry or financial assistance. We do some crisis counseling. We provide assistance with any of the state entitlements. For senior citizens, we're helping with their paperwork, maybe even going out into the homes and setting up services. For youth, we are able to provide some counseling, some family counseling, drug and alcohol, substance abuse, prevention, education, as well as counseling, as well as the juvenile review board, so any juvenile justice type thing. So kind of all ages, all types of support, from financial, emotional, to setting up those services for them.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions?
I just have one question on page 57, the miscellaneous supplies. I was just wondering what we were getting this year.
That line item is actually our in-kind expenses for our youth service grant, so it typically helps pay for the adventure programming, the ropes, the harnesses, as well as some supplies for the teen center as well. So it's a mixture of all the types of activities we do for youth. But we actually get a secondary grant based on this line item to be able to even meet more needs for the youth.
So does that kind of offset it a little bit?
Yeah.
Excellent.
And one of the things, a bunch of part-time people, how many grant positions do you have?
We have 8 different grants, although we have 4 people doing the grant positions. I have a few. Chris Montez, our juvenile justice coordinator, is actually supported through 4 different grants. So, he comes to us being supported through several different grants and does a lot of the youth counseling and youth initiatives.
So Nancy's always out getting grants for different part-time people.
Yep.
And
I love getting grants.
yeah.
And we love you getting them. Any other questions?
CJ? Yeah.
Yep. On page 59, the elderly services, some of the commentary talks a little bit about some of the services. I just want to make sure that we're still including the dial-a-ride service in this year's budget.
This line item is actually not dial-a-ride. It's probably page 60 is my guess.
60,
That's
okay.
a total separate.
Gotcha.
Fine.
Nope, I'm sorry, 61. I'm sorry.
61, okay. Oh, okay, there we go, dial-a-ride.
Yeah, so it's a separate line item.
Great.
Yep. And it used to be that contractual, and now it's all the different expenses for it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? No? Thank you, appreciate it. You do a great job with all the community and rec programs. It is certainly one of the bright spots people have when they come in town. We have tentatively approved pages 55 to 65. Approved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I think next one is Westwood's.
Westwood's, yeah, and,
We'll do rec after.
okay, yeah, I don't mind, I'm writing a grant back at my office, so I don't mind coming back.
Yeah,
too.
no, but I guess Jeffrey's on his way.
Yeah.
So we'll just do Westwood's first?
Sure.
Yeah. Westwood's, and it doesn't, I don't think it has a page number, right? It would be Westwood's Fund, it's the blue tab.
Oh, 81.
81.
Okay. So it would be,
Page 81.
The other blue tab.
okay.
All right, I'll make a motion to tentatively approve page 81, Westwood's Golf Course.
Second?
Wait, hold on. Let's get organized.
81.
81 through 83, Peter, thank you.
Okay. Tentatively approve pages 81 through 83, Westwood's Golf Course.
Second.
And if you look on your budget book, the first page before you get to page 81, you have a page that says the Golf Course Fund. It has the revenues and the appropriations. Are we all looking at the same page?
Yep.
So you can see that our appropriations is what is the next things, where it's the restaurant, the clubhouse, the driving range. And obviously, we try to have our revenues meet our appropriations. So our appropriations are our golf course, our clubhouse, our restaurant, our driving range, and our golf course rentals. And then we have our revenue that comes in is our green fees, our season tickets, our golf cart rentals, our driving range, other, and our lease pay and interest. The page 81 is our restaurant. Page 82 is our driving range, and page 83 is our golf cart rental. So I,
Doing 80, can you include instead of 81, just because that's.
I don't
I don't have an 80.
Yeah, the 80 is the actual clubhouse. I have it right here. Here, I can pass it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all the expenses at the clubhouse.
You guys have page 80?
No.
No.
Look at the 80, but do you have any questions on the, generally on the golf course?
On 81 through 83?
The restaurant,
Yeah,
do we manage it? Do we lease it out?
We lease it out.
Long-term, short-term lease?
We have, it's every 2 years a lease, and we just last year, so they're returning. It's Mark Zamer from Waste Materials. He has a partner with the gentleman from Tap Rock, so they are the ones that do our food.
and
Do a great job.
yeah, we just, when did they start? Last year?
Last year,
Last
yep.
year, and it's, again, it's a small business, but my understanding of what I've heard is that people have been very pleased about the restaurant and how it's been running, and, you know, it has such a small kitchen, and unless you do like a major upgrade, you really can't do too much to it, but supposedly, my understanding is that it's been doing quite well.
Yeah, it's been doing very well. All the leagues are staying afterwards. Any tournaments are utilizing them. They're doing a great
The
job.
tournaments are able to utilize it?
Absolutely.
Or do you have to bring outside because they're not that big of the kitchen?
No, they bring in grills. They do it right there for the pavilion. It works out really well. And they actually do other things too, like they're doing hopefully our intergenerational in May and things of that nature. So they do a good job. They're easy to work with too.
And the golf course has been, the last, relatively stable with.
It really has been. It's very smooth. We have a core group of golfers that are there on a regular basis. We've actually picked up a few extra leagues, so our rounds are doing as well as can be expected for a golf course, and we've been able to pay back the grant and everything, so it's been going really well.
Are you open for the season?
No, but the driving range is open.
And if anyone has seen, the driving range has a nice new fence around it. That was done just
finished yesterday.
Just finished yesterday. So that was done in-house.
And how about the youth program? I know in the summertime they run a youth league.
Yep, we have not only a youth league, but we also have the camps that take place there as well. And they're super active. For 4 weeks, we are kind of inundated by youths for the camp.
And what's the percentage of Farmington residents that are season ticket holders versus people from outside?
Last time we did a study, I think it was 62% Farmington residents, and then the rest were not Farmington residents. However, with seniors, it's a higher percentage. I think it was closer to 70% for our seniors.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And they do pay a different rate to be out of town as well.
Right, a lower rate for the Farmington residents, yep.
Yep.
Right. We want to make sure you have page 80.
Yep.
So we can, I don't know if you want to take a minute break or just.
And page 80 is
Sit here
the club.
quietly.
Yeah.
I'll sit here very quiet.
Yeah.
How many leagues do you have coming into the golf course?
That's not sitting quietly.
Not good at quiet.
I'm counting them by day, actually. About 15.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, we have a few real small leagues that are just smaller. Then we have a few stables that have been there for years, the Farmington Men's, the Eatonville Men's. Those are our large leagues. And we have a few senior leagues also that meet during the morning hours as well.
Where's the sweet spot as far as the ages? I mean,
We have a lot of youth that play there on a regular basis, and then we have a huge group of seniors that are regulars and make up most of our membership too. Then we have a bunch of families, college students that come home, for the summer and play. So the neat thing about it is it's really an intergenerational type, activity. We can have 2 teenagers playing with 2 gentlemen who might be in their 80s. You don't get that in everything you can do, so that's pretty cool.
Do we have any Farmington business leagues?
We do. We have a few business leagues. We have a few that are right down the street past Tungus that actually come there on a regular basis.
Nice.
Yep. And then our JV practice there, and then, St. Paul's. So we actually have a few schools, too, that utilize it.
How about instructions?
I'm sorry?
Instructions?
Yep. Our golf pro does instruction as well.
Yep.
And then we do group instruction, too.
What's the group instruction through? Is that through continuing ed, or is it just through the course itself?
It's through recreation. We actually, are able to, we do a women's, we do a family one, we do a couples, all different.
Great.
How many employees?
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
Obviously, got two different sets.
There's probably about 15, depending, as we start the season. And then we have a few high school students and college students that are only there for the bulk of the summer to help with the camps and stuff.
All right. Sorry about that. Missed a page. I don't know how you got one, Nancy.
I know.
Not to make things too complicated, but you should
We need to
amend the
amend it, yes,
motion to
correct.
include 80
80.
to, yeah.
I'd ask for an amendment to the motion to make it pages 80 through 83.
I'll make an amendment to the original motion to pages 80 through 83.
Second.
We will first vote on the amendment to amend the original motion to 80 to 83. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Is there anything else we want to discuss in this area? Does anyone have any other questions in this area? Seeing page 80 now, studying hard. Okay, we have a motion on the table now to tentatively approve pages 80 through 83. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
All right. If you want to turn to page 22.
I make a motion to tentatively approve page 22, the Staples House.
Second.
So this is the building on this campus. You guys toured it, the Staples House. And on the Staples House, it's just a little bit of a reduction because of that we did some work last year, and I think we didn't have to do the work this year, if I'm correct about that. Am I right? Yes. Right?
The electricity, but we upped the electricity in the building and
Right.
everything, so that it's more economical, that's why.
Am I correct? Yeah. Yeah.
Questions on page 22? So last year it was an electric upgrade. There's your savings here. This has just been basically keeping that building running.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Seeing no other questions, we have a motion on the table to approve tentatively page 22. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Or do you want to wait for Jeff?
I mean, that's up to you. He is en route. He said he was on his way, but, I mean, we can start.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The rec fund,
wait.
which is going to be,
702.
I think it's a tab. It's in the back of the book, a red tab. 72 to 79.
I make a motion to tentatively approve pages 72 through 79 of the recreation programs.
Second.
Yes.
So if you know, we have the recreation programs, and these programs are we collect money, it's revenues and expenditures. So again, if you look on right after the red tab where you see the revenues and you see the appropriations, so you see our appropriations that we go down as sports and physical fitness, cultural and creative, social programs, bus trips, special needs, recreational camps, recreational services, and senior trips and programs. And then above that, you have the revenues that we collect to support those programs. So I don't know if you have any particular questions about any of the programs.
Any questions on the chart? No.
So are all these programs essentially continuing education, or is it?
No, they're recreation
Oh, okay.
programs, yep.
Yep.
They're the sports, physical fitness, those sort of things, as well as our cultural and creative and our camps and things of that nature. And it also includes, you'll notice the line for senior trips and programs, and that's programs that happen at the senior center, but it comes through this rec fund.
When you say happens at the senior center, of course, the trips are just starting there, and they're New York
They're going
trips,
wherever
that
they
type
may
of
go.
thing, as they're traveling.
Yep.
So again, we try to do a balanced budget here of having our revenue 629, 638, with our appropriations at 629, 638. Obviously, not all our programs are self-sufficient, but other programs support the other programs. There is the administration of the program too, and that's on page 78. And that's the full-time administration of the program. And these, again, are supported by fees for the programs.
Even the administration is supported by the
Yeah, even
fees?
the administration is by the fees, too.
Any questions? Hearing none. We have a motion on the table to tentatively approve pages, I'm trying to talk slowly to see if Jeff walked in. Pages 72 through 79. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And is housing in there, or is
Yeah, it
that
was in
separate?
there.
It was in there,
We
okay,
did
yep,
housing.
okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
So that is it with Nancy's budget.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much for all you do, and for all you will be doing the next few weeks.
Absolutely. Great. Okay, yeah, good. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay. So our next group is the library, and I'll give you the page number in a moment. And then we'll call the library up. Hold on, can we find the page number for library?
This is Carolyn Ford, the Assistant Director of the Library, and Lori Yu, who's the Chair of the Library Board. Library.
On page 17.
Oh, you can stand up. I can hand them out if you want. Okay. You can stand on it. You can stand on it, yes.
Hi, Caroline.
How are you?
17.
Thank you, how are you? Good.
Thank you very much.
What page was it? 17?
17.
Maybe, yes.
That does make sense.
Hi, Caroline.
Unless it's under library.
Yeah, I'll
Oh, there you
explain
go,
this.
library.
Yeah.
There you go, thank you. That would make
Is this
more
where I
sense.
sit?
Yeah, you sit, I'm gonna get up, so you could
Oh,
probably.
no, I
sit
need you right here.
So, if you go to page 17 in our book, if you could see the third item down on the right-hand side is the library grant. And that library grant is for $2,681,134. And how we work here in Farmington is that we give the library a grant, and then they administer the grant with their library board. They're a separate entity to us, but we do fund a good portion of their budget, but there's other revenue sources and things of that nature. So they, I think, are just going to give it. This is a 3% increase from what they requested last year. And I think you're going to go and give a little present. What was that?
1.92, isn't it?
Budget for us, I think it's 3%. Yeah.
This is what Laura left me. For the town side.
26532. It's a little higher than that. They requested less. Oh, because
I'll ask.
put more money in.
Okay.
So your number is, I think everything is the same
Could do
except
that,
for.
that line on
you.
page.
Yeah, that line.
17.
No, I'm not going to.
Okay, all
No,
right.
Okay. Well, anyway, my numbers aren't exactly yours, but we'll figure it out.
Do I need to make a motion for this page and this line item?
I would do the page and the line item. That sounds good. to me.
Okay. I make a tentative approval for page 17, the third line item down, library grant.
Second.
Yeah.
Well, good evening. I know some of you, not all of you, but I'm Lori Yu, and I'm here as the library board chair of the Farmington Libraries. And joining me is Caroline Ford, who's the assistant director of the libraries. And as some of you may know, our executive director, Laura Horn, resigned recently, a little unexpectedly, but we're moving forward. And I'm happy to announce that earlier this week, the board interviewed a prospective interim candidate who yesterday accepted the position. And we have a gentleman by the name of Richard Conroy, who's a retired executive director from the Essex Library and past president of the Connecticut Library Association. He's going to be joining us on Monday. Yay. We need him right now. Lots been going on, as it is for you this week as well, with all the concerns around coronavirus. But Richard Conroy brings a strong background in management and information technology to the libraries, and I think he's going to be a great asset, and he's just basically going to steer the ship until we can hire a permanent executive director. A search committee has been formed, and we were really concentrating on an interim director for right now, and now we'll move forward with looking for a permanent director. The process takes a while. It could be 3 to 4 months anyway for this interim to be in place, but we won't really know till we get into it. But we do have leadership coming on board, and Caroline has been great in the interim. There's lots to do, but she's handled it beautifully. I'd like to begin by thanking the town council for its ongoing support and the generous grant that you give the libraries every year. The town of Farmington and its employees are amazing, so willing to assist the libraries, whenever needed. And we really enjoy this partnership, and honestly, we wouldn't be nearly as successful without the town of Farmington's support, so thank you. The town's generous grant enables the libraries to provide programs and services really of the highest quality. Obviously, fiscal responsibility is vitally important, and the library staff and the board work really hard to stay within budget and also to plan for any unexpected expenses. The library board and the executive director monitor the budget, monthly, and also work closely with the treasurer of the FEGLA, and as many of you know, that's the Farmington Village Green and Library Association, that also contributes to the operating expenses for the libraries. And the FEGLA helps us plan for future expenses, particularly, capital improvements. So I'd like to share a short video with you about the library. This is sort of a tradition. When Jay Johnston was the director, he used to enjoy doing this.
You walk in there, they greet you by name, they know what, they have things on hold for you. Everyone is always very friendly. Never get the feeling that someone is telling you to be quiet or go over here. Everywhere you go, whether you go to the community room for just to look around at the pictures or step in on a performance that's going on, you never feel left out. Well, I love just it's just stimulating right away.
Just coming here and just being everybody studying and reading, and just the educational environment wants anybody to read and study more and do something, educational. It's just motivational, inspirational.
Anyway, Leah Farrell always does a nice job putting that together for us. I do have a short PowerPoint I'd just like to go through with you. I promise it's short. Brian, do we have a clicker? Perfect, thank you. I think you all have a copy of the PowerPoint as well. These are just a whole lot of numbers. I thought instead of reading them, I would just put them in a slide. You can see we have a lot of visitors every year at the libraries, lots and lots of program attendees. We have a lot of metrics we track every month. We review them at our board meetings, and we really look at circulation, print circulation, as well as e-books and digital circulation. Lots of, website and database, visits happening, and new card holders all the time, which is really encouraging. And you have a copy of our annual report and a short little trifold summary of some of those numbers as well. Just thought I'd go through and highlight a few things that we accomplished this past year. And again, I'm saying we, I'm speaking as a board member, but I'm speaking for the library staff. They're the ones that do the hard work. We did a teen space redesign this year, and it has been a huge success. It has really brought life back to the teen center. If you ever have an opportunity to pop into the libraries after school, after the high schoolers get out, it's packed. And there's a lot of good exchange, good learning going on, a lot of collaboration in that space. And we upgraded the computers in that space and put some new furniture in there. And it's been very, very effective at increasing our numbers and our participation in the teen areas. Also added a new hands-on learning station at the Barney Library. It's very, very popular. I was told the other day that even the staff like to play with it a little bit when they're cleaning up at night. Looking forward, our pavers out front are very tired, and they're loose and wobbly, and Gary was a big help in helping us sort of put together, figure out what needed to be done, and we need to replace those pavers. We've had a short-term fix where a few of the wobbly ones are cemented in place, but we really felt that this was a big liability for the library, particularly given the age of some of our patrons. They're a little bit older, maybe not as spry or sure on their feet. So we want to get that taken care of this spring, and hopefully we'll move forward with that. And the materials we've chosen are just going to hold up a lot longer. There are better processes in place now for how to lay these pavers and keep them in place without them ending up to be wobbly. As far as collections, this is just a huge part of the libraries and what they do. We're always looking for ways to increase the checking out of the collections. We've introduced something called Wonder Books, which is a print book with an audio book inside it, and it's been very popular through the children's department, I'm told. We have something called a Sprout Early Learning Backpack, and these are theme-based backpacks with all kinds of materials in them, whether it's dinosaurs or the solar system, anything, and people are checking out these backpacks. It's been very, very popular. We've increased the checkout limit on Hoopla. Any of you who use the library will know that Hoopla is one of our streaming services. It is a monthly subscription, so to increase our Hoopla checkouts, we definitely have to obviously pay more for those subscriptions, but we've been able to increase that because there was great demand. We've significantly increased ebook selections. This is what everyone wants. They want ebooks, and if you've gone online to reserve a book, sometimes there's a wait for these ebooks because they're so popular. So we're trying to find ways to increase the selections available as well as the amount of the frequency at which you can check them out. Right. We have a big ukulele class, and lots of people love to come to the library to learn to play the ukulele. So we've added ukuleles to the collection. The staff have started a circulating board game collection, and some libraries do it with puzzles. We are having huge success with board games. So we're pretty excited about that. And we've added 2 new online video streaming services and some new online learning resources as well. Looking ahead, I know Laura Horn had been in discussions with the Board of Ed, with the superintendent and assistant superintendent about partnering more with the Farmington schools, particularly getting these wonder books and something else called Playaways. Playaways are like a tablet, aren't they? Yeah. It's a tablet into the hands of some of the children participating on the Choice program. So the children who are commuting to and from Hartford, particularly just giving them these tablets with learning programs on them might be a way to extend the school day and increase their learning as well. So that's something we're hoping to do in this next year. Staff development. The staff have they do continuing ed, obviously, and they have periodic staff trainings. Every August they do an emergency preparedness training with the Farmington Police Department. They completed a cultural competency staff training, which of course is important. And they've started it, and they're going to continue forward with it, a really nice staff wellness program, which the staff are participating in and very excited about. Technology, we've had to replace some older public computers. We've added some new hands-on technology instruction. We have a great teen mentor program going on where teens come into the library and sit down, particularly with senior citizens. I guess it's for anyone, right? But
it is for anyone, but it is really popular and very effective.
With the seniors, if you want to know how to create an Excel spreadsheet, they can show you how to do that and so forth. We've updated the telecommunications system this year, which was pretty antiquated, and we're very happy with our new system now. Looking ahead, we're really seriously considering website redesign. It's just time to give the website a facelift and sort of reorganize it a little bit. We have not contracted with anyone yet, but that is definitely on the radar. There's a lot, as you know, that has to go on the website, and it's a project trying to organize it. As far as community, we had developed between the board and the staff a few years back a strategic plan or a strategic framework, which sort of ended in 2019. So we began the discussions of starting to plan for a new strategic framework for the next 5 years. Some of the staff held these community conversations in the fall. There were about 3 or 4, weren't there? Community conversations, and just sort of asking members of the community, what are you looking for in the library? And as many of you know, libraries are changing so quickly. It's not just about books anymore. It's about, so much more than just books. It's programs, it's services, and just tried to take the temperature on the community as far as what they're looking for in a library. So we haven't moved forward quite yet because we've had some administrative changes, but that is something we'll be working on throughout the rest of the year, is updating our strategic framework. Every March, since we've had the maker space open, they've had a maker fair. Last year there were over 750 people that attended. It's the last Sunday of March. It was slated for a week from Sunday, but unfortunately we've had to postpone that. It's immensely popular, and our maker space is, if you've never been in there, it's a pretty cool space with our 3D printers and lots of equipment. And then the staff together identified some organizational values this year, so those have been important as well. Looking ahead, we have a music series every month. There's a concert through the Garmany Music Series. In the summer, there'll be outdoor concerts. Generally, they're on the green by the Barney Library. They're well attended. Like I said, the Maker Fair was scheduled, but that's postponed at this point. And we're just ramping up for the summer reading program. And started something last year where they introduced summer reading for adults as well as teens and children. And all three were just immensely popular. It was a lot of fun. So we're revving up for that summer reading program. The organizational values that the staff identified are welcoming, inclusion, enthusiastic, curious, and forward-thinking. I think they're all pretty self-explanatory. I just wanted to speak briefly about building maintenance and security. We haven't decided on any of these yet, but these are some things that are on our radar as far as we probably need to look at improving the drainage system on the outside of the building. As you know, we're built into a hill, and when the ground is frozen and it rains real hard, the water has to go somewhere, and it's either coming in through the roof or sometimes up through the floor. So we've dealt with it, but it is something that we're going to probably have to look into a little more closely for a more permanent solution. We're talking about looking into, I believe Eversource has a program for converting the lighting to more energy efficient lighting. We haven't done it yet, but it's definitely on the radar. Probably have to replace the existing water fountains. Again, we haven't committed to a security camera system yet, but we're talking about it, whether there's a need for one at the libraries, even if it's just at the front door. It gets a little tricky in libraries as far as if people want to be on film or not. Privacy, right. So it may just be, a front door thing. But again, it's just I wanted to share with you some of the things that we've been talking about. And the board and the staff are helping to update. We're really trying to update the building maintenance plan and sort of plan for capital improvements because, the roof, the boiler, 2 buildings, we have a lot we have to consider. So again, in terms of being fiscally responsible, we really want to have a capital improvement plan. So when you look at the budget, and I'm sorry that these numbers don't exactly match the numbers Kathy had, but they're pretty close. These were the numbers that Laura Horn left for us, so I apologize if your numbers are just a little bit higher.23 the FY20 is, the town grant is the 2.6 million, 2.60323. We have non-municipal income, so our total combined spending was the 2.8. The proposed FY21 budget, you'll see, again, my numbers are 1.92 increase, but Kathy, you said it's a little over 2, right?
Joe, when Laura had come in, we still hadn't included the pension costs, so those costs are included in our numbers, which doesn't look like are included in your numbers. So,
So it's a little closer. Yours was the 2.2681,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so almost $20,000 difference then, right?
681 versus 603, so $78,000 difference, 78, 9, 80, 81, right?
So, but for FY '21,
Yeah, this is what I'm putting in for you, $2,681,134.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
$28,000 difference.
So when we talk about the non-municipal income, we have the Farmington Village Green and Library Association has an endowment distribution each year, and they calculate it's the average of the 3-year average, I believe, and so we generally can plan on that endowment based on the previous year's, distribution. Fines and fees are an income stream for the library. The Friends of the library will contribute, and they help pay for a lot of our programming. The Friends generally, would give at least $6,000. There's a renewable grant called the State C-Card grant that's like $1,300. We have some special gifts and grants that are renewable. And the special projects are, we have a passport office, and that's a good income generator for the libraries. It's about $20,000 a year that the passports generate. So we do have the non-municipal income as well. And I just wanted to, this is pretty much common sense, but these are all the different lines in our budget that, it's, the bottom line is covering all these different categories. A lot of these are fixed expenses, like the automation services. That's a contracted, service each year. Some of the increases really are, one was an increase in health insurance costs. The switching over to Office 365, the Barracuda Essential subscription, as you all know, these a lot of these subscriptions now are are cloud-based, so that's an annual subscription, which we haven't had before. So we've had to factor that in to our expenses. And then really going back to the ebooks, the rising costs of ebooks, as well as just increasing the collection. We get a discount on print materials, but we don't get a discount on ebooks, correct?
We do not get,
Yeah.
in fact, we pay more than our share of e-books.
Right. But the demand is there. It's just, we can't really avoid it. So I just wanted to explain what some of our increase were. And that's pretty much it. I'm sure some of you might have some questions, which hopefully Caroline can help me with. Anyone? Oh, Ed?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Lori, and the board for the great job that you do, as well as the staff of the library. We're very fortunate to have all of you.
Thank you.
My first question is the security camera you mentioned. Did that arise from concern or complaint from a library patron, or an issue with materials being stolen, or is that just something that's being discussed?
It wasn't, but actually, one of the things last year, we got new furniture in the children's department. The children's department is pretty big, and it goes all the way back, and there's an area where it's sort of more quiet, and there was vandalism of somebody punched their pen into the chair. There's chairs, vinyl chairs, and they kind of ruined them. And so that was one of the ideas behind that. It's a place where there aren't usually a lot of folks. And there are some, corners in the library that can, like if you wanted to do nefarious things, you could. So I think it was more out of, concern about if, somebody was being harmed or something, or somebody was doing something, wrong in the library. So that was one of the reasons that it was considered or thought about too.
But it was not based on any particular incident or anything like that.
Okay. That's good to know.
And again, it's very early in the discussion stages, but something we probably need to discuss at some point, whether we're going to move forward or not.
And then one other quick question. I know last year you guys were considering doing a mini golf tournament and didn't end up doing it. I'm wondering, are you still considering that for the future, either this year or next year or sometime in the future, or is that kind of...
Well, good question. It hasn't come up again, Ed. I don't think it's off the table. It's just, there's just been so much going on. And I think really the question is whether it would be an FEGLA fundraiser or whether it would be library-specific fundraiser. Typically, the library doesn't really hold fundraisers. You know, I think it was more, the thinking was to help build the FEGLA endowment, which of course covers the Stanley Whitman House, the Village Green, and the Memento Mori Cemetery on Main Street. So I wish I could give you a definitive answer, but I don't know. It's not being talked about right now. With a new executive director, maybe we'll bring it back, you know, to the discussion table.
Thank you.
CJ. Good. Thank you, guys. Just generally, what's the composition of the inventory between ebooks and regular books? And are we trending to more ebooks? And you know, how will you see that shift and maybe costs in the future with switching more predominantly towards ebooks?
Sure. I would say that people still love books.
I do.
Me too. But there definitely is a convenience that people like. Somebody recently told me they were on vacation and they were used their, I can't remember where they were, in Florida, I think. And they said, it's so great. I didn't have anything to read, and I went on my phone and I got a book from your library when they were in Florida. And one of the other things that is emerging is the virtual patron. We mentioned Hoopla. There's a lot of different things that folks use outside of the library, and it's we consider them our patrons too. But it is shifting because you have to consider somebody that never walks in the door of the library is still a user. And ebooks however long we've been using ebooks, every single month, year after year, there's more usage. So it continually goes up, and people are thrilled so Hoopla is a platform that has movies, it has audiobooks, and it has ebooks. And that one is really well received too, because it's sort of everything is there all together. So the reason that we want to spend more funds to use purchasing that is it's a proven winner for us.
Okay, thank you.
And who can use the Hoopla? Is it only our local residents who are members, or?
Yes, it is only Farmington residents. And then there's another platform called Overdrive, and Overdrive is ebooks and e-audiobooks, and that is our patrons. And there's also a shared collection in a consortium, a local, so Avon and West Hartford, and the local libraries. So there's a collection that only our patrons can use, but then there's a shared collection too. So it contributes to, it gives us more for patrons to choose from, and some of it we don't, is, paid for by the whole group, including us.
Yeah. Other questions?
The groundwater you talk about coming from the building, several different areas, one particular area?
So there is and we've been working with the town of Farmington also on this. There's a downspout. I'm going to know all the directions. But we went and looked outside, and the downspout kind of made a hole in the ground. And so the town of Farmington is helping us, and they built a thing that takes the water away from the hole, and that has seemed to have helped a little bit, but we still are getting leaking that's coming in the children's department from the ground.
And the sledding hill by the high school, right on that side.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when it's really bad in the community room, we get leaks there too. So it's sort of...
So it's not isolated on one side, it could be, so we talk about both sides of the building, basically.
Correct.
Right. And we've pulled the
not myself, but the business manager has worked with the contractor, pulling the prints from when the renovations were done, and they're trying to contact the people that did the work during the renovation 10 years ago, right?
I think so.
Yeah, 10 years ago. Gary knows more. Gary's helped us with this. We're still learning. We're still trying to figure out, and Scott Zinke has been out
Yes.
and helped us. And there's a few things that he wants to look at in the springtime. So again, I wish I had definitive answers, but it's just something that we're looking into and hoping to find an answer to.
Just one question. I know we're referencing both this library and the Barney Library, but we're talking about mostly, it sounds like, building and maintenance for this building. What are we talking about doing in Barney Library, or is it kind of between the two? Is there a breakdown between the two, or?
It's all lumped together.
All lumped together?
Yeah.
Are there things going on at the Barney Library that we should be aware of?
Minor things that we've just tackled as they've come up. We had a little problem with the boiler there, and we got that fixed recently. We had, some minor siding issue, right, that we had to get that fixed. But no, we keep an eye on both of them. And again, when I reference this capital improvement plan or the we call our building maintenance plan, it's addressing both buildings. And we have a spreadsheet. We're sort of trying to update that. We just hired a new building maintenance full-time employee, and he's helping us get a grasp of what the lifetime is on the roof, the boiler, and so forth, so we can start planning for when we're going to need to replace those for both buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just trying to have, the 10 or 20 year period so we can really plan financially, plan accordingly.
Any other questions? We have a motion on the table to tentatively approve pages, where do we go now? What page were we, 17? Page 17, oh yeah, there you go. Line 3, 54608. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
I like your, whatever program you use for your presentation.
Oh, Leah does that for us. Good.
So we have the general administration group of accounts, and then from there we have the benefits, and then we also then go to revenues and that. So I think either we can do general administration and then have dinner, or we can have dinner now and then hit general administration.
Have dinner now.
Okay.
Yes.
Adjourn for dinner. Move to adjourn for dinner?
Don't want to motion to adjourn for dinner.
Don't want to adjourn? What do we do? Take a break?
Take a break.
Recess. There you go. Thank you.
Recess.
Okay, we're back. Peter?
I make a motion to tentatively approve page 1,
Through
town manager.
25.
Pardon?
1 through 25.
Oh, tentatively approve pages 1 through 25.
Second.
So this is the general administration group of accounts, and this is accounts for town government, for nonprofit, and also for nonprofit organizations. Just some highlights. This account is up 0.65%, so it's very flat. This is the account that had the salary reserve in it, and it covers the salary adjustments only for the non-union staff and others. All the bargaining unit salaries are in the department budgets, what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. It also has the library budget in it, but we've approved that, but the library's in it. A couple of things to make note of is that 2 part-time positions have been eliminated from this group of accounts. The first is a part-time land acquisition consultant, that was Liz Dolphin, and 1 part-time town hall reception has not been funded in order to meet the budget target. We also had some discussion about funding the additional pay period this year. That would have been in this section of the budget, and we did not do that because it would have been an additional cost of $450,000. We were able to save some money and we have that banked. When we wrote this budget, we were hoping that the pension account wouldn't look as bad next year after what's happening the last couple of days. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case, but we were hoping that because the pension went up so much this year, that next year we would able to do the extra pay period. So we did not fund the extra pay period. And my thoughts on the land acquisition consultant is twofold. Again, right now, Liz has been she was our assistant town planner for 30 years. She's been our land acquisition person for, I think, 5 or 6 years, maybe.
Time goes by, so it could be
5 or 6 years. I would like to see, if possible, if we could still fund some money in for Liz's position. And what we would do if we didn't do that, we would start having the town planner and the existing staff take over the land acquisition. But Liz does have a lot of knowledge, and it would be nice to start what's the word I'm looking for? Transitioning. So maybe start having either Shannon or Mark in the planning department work with Liz and start coming to the meetings and start transitioning it out. I mean, again, Liz isn't going to be here forever, and we do need to get some basic knowledge. She really has she's been doing all the stuff for us. So if the council sees fit, one of the thoughts I had was that we do have some money in the open space account. We haven't historically funded the land acquisition person out of that account, but it wouldn't be that much money, and I thought maybe if we could fund, we fund her position, I think $30,000. We spent much more than that, but some of that is that we haven't had town planners, and Liz was helping me when we were in transition. So I think that there's $30,000 that we usually fund. I would like to see if we could do maybe $20,000 if the council was interested in that, and maybe taking 15 of that out of the open space account. And if we didn't need it, we wouldn't use it, but it would take it out of that account instead. The part-time receptionist, as you know, we have 2 part-time receptionists. One was in the morning, one was in the afternoon. I think, right? One was in the morning?
We kind of split it up where it was Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Friday, and they split Wednesdays.
Difficult with part-time work, especially in the economy that we have had, that people are not looking for part-time work. A lot of people aren't looking for part-time work. So first of all, it's hard to get part-time people, and that second, a lot of times they leave. We feel pretty confident that our receptionist now, our part-time person, is just interested in part-time work, and she's doing a nice job. I think we should probably keep that vacant and only have someone. But that is somewhat of a reduction of service, because when you come into the town hall, there's no one there to greet you. Only part-time there is, and the phones. But I think that's something that we could, live with. So I don't know if you have any other questions between 1 and 25.
First off, the open space money, what is that, is there something that's not funded if we take it out of the open space?
Well, it's less land, but...
So that's the money that would be go towards purchasing land.
Land.
So if there's not land to be purchasing, how large is that account?
Wait, but also...
The money, the account, the money would probably come from this money that we use now for the maintenance of our open space. What happens is, the open space that we have, that we rent out, we have a separate place where that money goes. It doesn't go back to the general fund.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We set it aside for maintenance of the open space and stuff. There is a balance in that account. And, it's not sustainable. You couldn't do it for the next 10 years, but, on a limited basis, you could probably use some of that money for what Kathy's proposing.
I'm sorry, so that was incorrect. It's not out of the land acquisition bond.
It's not the acquisition.
It's the maintenance.
It's the maintenance.
Right. Okay.
But we have enough to continue to maintain the open space this year to the level we maintain it, and take some money out of that for a position which is helping with open space, because that's what she's looking at for the most part. How do we bill Liz? Is it by the hour? Is it by the day? How does she?
She bills by the hour.
By the hour, okay. Any other questions on those two?
Yeah, just Kathy, can you? I think when we were doing the teacher's contract at the Board of Ed, that extra pay period is something you're not funding a pay period. That's coming due, though, right? I mean, that's So I just want to make sure that the funding is there, because that is something that's the bell tolls for thee when it comes to, an extra pay period.
Technically, the extra pay period becomes next fiscal year, not next fiscal year, the fiscal year after 21, 22.
Oh, okay.
That's the clean break. That's
Yep.
where the actual last day that we pay we pay on Thursday. June 30th to 2022 is a Thursday. So that's the clean break, and that's technically the year you should do it, or you could do it. The thought doing it this year, doing it in 2021 was one, we were assuming that there would be a large hit to our debt service next year because of the high school project coming on board. And if we could afford to do it this year, the payroll this year, the extra $500,000 this year, we would do it this year and not compound the extra debt service in the following year. In addition to that, the last time this occurred, the several years after that, we started putting money aside for it. So we do have probably half the money not quite half the money in a reserve account. So we would tap into that money to partially fund it also. So we had a choice. This year, basically what happens is this year, we will charge the payroll to the last pay period. The first pay period of the new fiscal year will actually have 9 days of the old fiscal year in it. Next year, it'll just be a clean, in 22, it'll be a cleaner break. It'll be 10 days.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
A question on that, since we're talking about it, is what percentage of the town employees are hourly as opposed to salaried?
It's actually probably 55 salary, 45, probably 55, 45 salary to hourly.
Okay.
But when you're thinking of hourly, I'm not sure, just to make sure, like, we think of hourly, like.
Someone who's paid hourly as opposed to
Hourly.
salary.
See, I think the better way to look at it is everyone can be considered salary.
Yeah.
It's whether or not you have the ability to get overtime pay. There's
Okay.
a difference between people that are legally obliged to get overtime or those
Yeah.
that aren't. Like, we are salaried in the sense that we don't get overtime.
Right.
But highway guys are, they get overtime.
Right.
In my head, I don't think of them as hourly.
Well-
I believe hourly people truly are part-timers.
Overtime. True.
Yeah.
Because the reason I'm asking, if you're a salaried employee and you get, 50 grand a year, even in where we have the extra pay period, you're still paying them 50 grand for the year. So, because that would happen to me, as I recall.
Yeah.
Loving that year.
It's not the way it works here. Basically, it's because of the way we pay that the 27th, the extra pay period occurs. We could actually change our pay. Because we pay based on 26, or we tell everybody, you get paid for, from this day to this day, you're in this fiscal year, so you get paid for that amount for that fiscal year. So, and a lot of our contracts are written so that when we calculate their salaries, they actually calculate it on an hourly basis and multiply it out. So it says, I get paid for 280 hours, or I get paid for this time period to this time period. So it really, what we end up doing is we end up taking that 27th pay period. And again, it's a charge. It's not necessarily that they're getting more pay, because it's just a matter of where it comes out in the overall process.
Okay. I'm not arguing, but it just sounds like they're getting more because if we've increased our budget because of that extra pay period, but not everyone, but most are salaried. So I'm just wondering how that works out. It's just a question I have.
Yeah,
so we are paying an extra pay period.
Yeah.
Beyond the salary.
And actually, if we doubled that and had $900,000, we could actually change the way we pay totally and never have the 27th pay period again.
Really?
Yeah, but it'd be.
Thanks for that thought, though.
$900,000 to do that. So,
No, that was just a question.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing the way it's set up, but it's the way we pay. and-
That's like leap year.
Yeah, exactly.
We're trying to, every 11 years, you get an extra pay period.
So,
Any other questions?
Yep. Page 9. In the commentary of page 9, you note that office supplies account for supporting the election events. And then below, you talk about the presidential election, the budget referendum, and the FHS referendum. If we hold the FHS, if the FHS referendum is on the same day as the presidential election, are there any realized savings there?
there would be some, not necessarily in the office supply account, but in the part-time.
In the part-time?
Part-time account, because you wouldn't have to have another election, so you wouldn't have to hire the people to cover that election. You may hire some more people, but you wouldn't hire, like, say you hire 30 people for a regular election, so you're going to hire 30 people for the referendum, you're going to hire 30 people for the presidential. If you put the referendum with the presidential, we may end up, instead of hiring 30 people, we may hire 40 people.
Mhm.
So you'll save 20, save the cost of 20 people, something like that. Office supplies, that's really a function of the ballots and the programming of the ballots. So we pay for every time, anytime there's a ballot, anytime that we have to pay for a programmer to program the ballots. So it's just a matter of whether they're going to add it to your presidential ballot, or you're going to have that question on there, or whether you're just going to have a standalone ballot with that question on it.
Gotcha. So looking at the part-time, that's 111,000, and there's 3, elections or referendums that you've listed here. So does that mean we would save 33, a third of that amount if we had it on the same?
You're probably looking at about $4,000.
Only $4,000, okay.
The 111,000 includes the elections, but it also includes the annual salary for both registrars.
Oh, okay.
The registrar pulls the salary down
Mhm.
Throughout the year. There are actually 27 pay periods, or 26 pay periods. So they get paid during the year, plus you have all the election workers that you pay for those election events.
Thank you, Joe.
I have one.
Okay, Kathy, did you want to add anything? I kind of jumped in on the salary thing early. Did you have anything else you wanted to add before we continue questions?
No, I just wanted to, if you could just go to page 11, just so I wanted to show you, just the one thing on salaries. If you could see on page 11, if you see the salary reserve, if you look at the 1920 revised budget, you could see it was 175, and now you can see it's 60. So that is where all that money is now in the other accounts, and the 60 is just for non-unionized employees and covered other salary adjustments, right? And part-timers and things of that nature. So this number, that account, that 50111 salary reserve goes up and down depending on if our contracts are settled or not. But that's the place we bank the money, and then when the contracts are settled, it all moves out. We have all our contracts settled now, so that's why all the money is in the accounts.
Other questions?
One question on page 9. A consultant to assist with the Farmington Village Center Committee has been included in the budget. What's this?
That's our LEP that's helping us with all the environmental stuff to go and do the testing.
Oh, okay. So
the
that's what
person.
that is.
Yeah, that's Ty.
So this is for Parsons?
Yeah, for Parsons.
Okay.
That's Ty and Bond, yeah.
All right.
And just to be clear, that's the testing on the Parsons property to make sure we agree it's clear before we move forward with any discussions with the state.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yeah.
On page 10. Is the part-time communications specialist, is that the person that we had hired in the previous year?
Yep.
That's also going to be involved in communications with the FHS school project?
Yeah,
as well?
she's overall with the whole town.
With the whole
She's
town,
doing
yeah.
some work for the high school.
She does do some work for the high school.
Mhm.
The high school is the committee is looking for other marketing support
Okay.
separate from her, special to referendums and all of that. But Diane was hired last year, and she does all of our newsletters, just all of our communications with Explore Farmington, and annual report as well.
Thanks.
This one on probate, it's a small one, but
What page, Joe?
probate 8, I believe. We're absorbing some of the costs for Plainville, or is Plainville putting money into since?
Remind me how that works again.
What's happening here is the probate court is, we're not necessarily absorbing all the costs from the other courts, like the Plainville court. They do provide reimbursement back to us, or not to us, to the probate court. What's happening here is, one is their demand for, everything they do is registered mail, and their postage has been increasing steadily over the past few years. Their copier costs have been increasing steadily over the past couple of years. There's just been a bigger demand, so they get probably 2/3, 3/5 of their funding. Probably 2/3 of their funding comes back from the regional courts, from the other places, and then we make up a little bit of the difference.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything to add before we tentatively approve? Okay, the motion is on the table and seconded to tentatively approve pages 1 through 25. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Just a bit of news, Farmington schools are closing on Monday, just in case if you haven't heard, that just came through.
The schools are closing on Monday for 2 weeks, just for anyone watching in the public. That is official now. And that means I believe all activities will be closed, if I read that properly.
No school-related activities during the 2-week closure. Excel will be open on Monday, March 16th, and we plan to continue to assess the viability of keeping that open.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Jill, what page are we on?
66.
Blue tab. Benefits and other.
Benefits, yeah.
It's the blue pad in the back, so. This is for page 66 and 67, Peter.
Okay. Make a motion to tentatively approve page 66 through 67 benefits.
Second.
Yep.
This is on page 66, and Joe will go through it in detail, but this is where we have our pension, our health insurance, our long-term disability, our unemployment, our employee assistance program, workers' comp, social security, and heart and hypertension. This has the biggest contribution of our increase is what we talked about at my narrative is our pension. Due to the increased ways we have to, the actuary assumptions, we have to raise, we have to fund our pension differently, and it's much more expensive. And so, Joe, maybe if you want to go line by line and just kind of explain our benefit section.
Sure. Social Security is just a function of, Social Security and Medicare, it's just a function of that's the employer's share of that for our employees. It's going up about $56,000. It's just a function of the raises that occurred, the increases in salaries that occur. And actually, another part of that is the wage base has increased. The Social Security increased the wage base substantially this upcoming year, so we'll have to be paying Social Security longer for some of our employees who used to exceed the wage base. The pension, Kathy mentioned. The actuary, what happened was the actuarial society that is in charge of pension valuations changed the mortality tables. And what they did is they actually set up governmental mortality tables. And these mortality tables are very specific now. They have them actually for public safety employees. They have them for people who sit at their desks. They have, so they, because they set these up and they required that they be implemented, the evaluation this past year that was done for July of 2019 had the new tables in them. And of course, the tables indicate that everybody's going to be living longer, although it's hard to believe with everybody buying toilet paper these days. But it indicates we're going to be living longer. And so that increases our liability. on the pension plan. Because it increases the liability, it makes the gap between the investments or the assets of the plan and the liability, the gap between those grew. And because that grew, the required pension contribution increased substantially for the next year. It was something, the pension board actually met and discussed this with the actuary for quite a length of time, a lengthy meeting on it, and discussed the mortality tables and whether we should actually implement them or not. There was some choice, some discussion maybe we shouldn't implement them, and basically the pension committee decided that the prudent thing was to adopt them this year. They had to be adopted at some point, so they said it was prudent, and they recommended that they be implemented into the valuation, and so the liability increased, and subsequently the contribution had to be increased. Health insurance has a small increase. We're unlike the board, we actually are having a very good year this year. We went through a couple of years of catastrophic claims. This year we still have catastrophic claims, but not to the extent that we had in the past. And so we're in good shape, and our claims actually are decreasing. What's increasing is those years we did have catastrophic claims or stop loss. We have two stop losses. We have an individual stop loss and an aggregate stop loss. For over the past 3 years, we've been hitting the individual stop loss substantially. In other words, if an employee's claims, if one individual participant's claims exceed $125,000, insurance takes over at that point. So we pay the first $125,000. After that, the stop loss insurance would take over. Last year we had 7 employees, or 7 contracts, I should say employees. Contracts exceed the $125,000 level. Our payout was close to $400,000 in reimbursement back from the stop loss. Of course, they want their money back, and so right now their proposals, they initially came back with a proposal to increase our individual stop loss insurance next year by 21%. Last year they increased it by 33%. We negotiated to this point, we're down to a 13% increase, and I don't think they're going to budge from that. So right now we do have a slight increase, and that slight increase is basically for the stop loss premium, individual stop loss premium. We've never hit the aggregate stop loss. So this is basically the individual stop loss premium that we're dealing with. Again, our claims experience was good. Our claims actually went down. Our claims projection for next year actually went down substantially, down about $150,000. But unfortunately, it was eaten by the individual stop loss. Life and disability insurance.
Joe, could I just ask a question on that before you go to the next? Don't mean to interrupt, but have we gone out to other people, I assume, and they're still the best deal?
I'm sorry, yes. Last year when we had the 33% increase, we went out to market, and we went to about 11 different carriers, and only one was willing to, our experience was so bad, only one was willing to propose, and they proposed with some conditions. So what we didn't do it. Blue Cross or Anthem, realizing that we were marketing this and not realizing what the results were at that point, actually came back to us and said, listen, we're not changing the 33%, but we'll cut your admin fees 33%. So it wasn't a one-for-one dollar savings, but it did give us some savings.
Yeah.
But we, again, because we had those 3 bad years of, we had 1 year in excess of $1 million in reimbursements. So
right.
Nobody just wanted to touch us.
Yeah.
And we actually looked at a reinsurance possibility. Reinsurance is a high-risk pool reinsurance, and they said the only way they would do it is if the Board of Ed came in with us. And the Board of Ed had no interest at that point of coming in with us.
Yeah.
They probably would want to do it this year, but they didn't want to do it.
Funny how that works out.
And again, you have to remember, with self-insurance is a good thing. And the way we do this insurance, we save a lot of money, as was stated last night. But you also have to remember that you are going to have periods of catastrophic claims. Claims are cyclical, and catastrophic claims are cyclical. You're going to have years of good experience, and you're going to have years of bad experience. and you have to budget or reserve for those and anticipate those bad years.
Thank you.
So, life and disability insurance, we did market that this year. We came out with some really good rates, so we were able to hold that steady for next year. That's our life insurance and disability, but that's required under contract. Unemployment is just what it says, unemployment when people terminate or leave employment. Tuition reimbursement, Erica could probably speak more towards, but we do reimburse for tuition expenses for courses under union contracts. Workers' comp is actually a decrease. There's two reasons for that. One is we're with PERMA. We've been with them for several years now. We did have a good year last year, and so our claims, our experience ratio, exposure is good. And they came back and said they indicated that there would be no increase in our premiums for next year. In addition, what they're doing is they're doing away with the every year they would do a premium audit, a payroll audit. Basically, at the end of the year, they do a payroll audit, and if they find that you underreported your payrolls for them, payrolls drive premiums.
Right.
So you tell them how much you think your payroll is going to be, and they base your rates, your premium is based on what you tell them payroll is going to be. Then at the end of the year, they come in and they audit, and if they find out that your payroll is higher than what you said, they charge you for that. You do have to pay an extra premium. What they're doing now is they're basically guaranteeing the rate. They're still going to do the audit, but what they're going to do is they're going to determine your payroll for you, and they're going to charge you based on that premium, based on what they think your payroll is. And then they'll audit it, and whether it's high or low, you're just going to pay that flat rate. It's a guaranteed rate. So basically, we have a slight decrease there. We did not budget for the premium audit, and we did have a flat experience. We're looking pretty good there for next year so far. And then heart and hypertension is public safety employees hired at a certain point in time are eligible for compensation benefits based on either having heart problems or hypertension problems. And we are on a pay-as-you-go basis for that. We do have a third-party administrator who helps us with that. We do budget that on a pay-as-you-go basis right now. So we pay for basically any of what the anticipated claims for the year, and we base that on experience right now. We know our claims are. We know what our experience is right now, what we're paying out. This budget, normally I would budget extra money for the possibility of settling claims. Sometimes you could identify an employee who you could settle their claim out. They get a rating from the workers' comp commissioner, and you can negotiate a settlement with them. This budget does not include any money for settlement, so we will not be doing any type of settlements next year, or proposing any type of settlements next year. That's pretty much the benefits.
And then,
Questions on the bench?
oh, just if you remember though, this is the account that I think Joe and I feel pretty
Underfunded
strongly about
pension
that. You have to have the $150,000. It is definitely underfunded, and I don't think that's a good
Understood.
thing. Okay.
Any questions on this page? Brian?
Yeah, just one question about something you mentioned earlier, Joe, which is that, we heard yesterday that the school board had a bad year. We're hearing you have a good year, and that there was some exploring of bringing the two together. Do we have two different insurance companies? We do. Was there a benefit to us having one big group? Is there a savings there?
It's been about 10 years since we last did this, but in the past, twice we went out to market together, and both times the results were that there was not a savings. What we found was the first time we did this, the board is with Cigna, we're with Anthem. The first time we did this, I'm probably going to confuse this, but one time we did this, and Anthem wanted the board enough that they actually made a very attractive proposal. They actually gave us a separate proposal, and it was worthwhile for the board to look at going to Anthem. And Cigna gave us a proposal, an attractive proposal to go to Cigna. But Anthem didn't give us a good proposal. It was almost like we would have to save money, we would have to actually flip-flop carriers.
Really?
And
Would that be different today, or was that a thing that was unique the last time you did it?
I think that was the first time we did it. The second, or the other time that we did it, just the opposite happened. Anthem was so eager to keep the town's business that they gave us a very good proposal to stay with them. Cigna gave the board a very good proposal to stay with them, but Cigna gave us a proposal. We would lose money if we went with them, and Anthem did the same thing to the board. So it was not worth us going to Cigna, and it was not worth the board coming to Anthem.
Okay.
It was just basically them trying to keep their market and not, they weren't really interested in taking on new market. They were just wanted to keep the market they had. We're different. We're very different plans. They're the high deductible plan, 100%, or I guess almost 100%. We are not. We're probably 60-40, probably 40% are high deductible at this point. Probably 60% are still on PPO, on a PPO plan. We're also a small group. We're 500 contracts. So I'm sorry. We're 230 contracts. We're 500 participants. So we're actually a small group.
Oh, okay.
And because of that, our aggregate stop loss has traditionally been much lower. Our individual stop loss threshold has been much lower than the boards. The boards, I believe, at 175. We used to be at 100. We went to 125 to help mitigate some of the cost increase. So.
We always keep on looking at it because in theory you would think that being together you'd be less, but every time we try to do it, it doesn't seem to work. And then the other thing too,
I'm not questioning whether it's right or wrong. Just wondering if there's a savings there.
Yeah.
And part of it you do run into is it's when you're having your catastrophic claims versus when they're having their catastrophic claims. Like right now, if we were to go out and the board was having their bad experience and we were having a good experience, we probably would get Anthem not really wanting to take on the board. But if you're going to market it, you really want to do it at a point where you're both having a good experience for a couple of years together. But if you're jointly having good experience and then go out to market, you probably would attract somebody at that point.
Okay. I know it wouldn't happen today, but down the road, if there was a savings, that would be nice to see for us.
Actually, individually, it probably something that next year we should explore the town alone going out. Even if the board doesn't want to go out, it's probably something the town should probably look at going out. There's a lot of changes taking place in the Connecticut marketplace. And so there's some concern about the Anthems. Anthem just got a very large contract with the state of Connecticut. And there's and Anthem's not really geared up to handle this contract data-wise, and there's some concern about us smaller groups that whether we're going to get lost in the shuffle when they take on the state contract. So next year, not next, but for the July 21 year, it might be something that we'll look at going to the market on.
All right, thank you.
Other questions on benefits? Joe?
Heart hypertension, just for full-time public safety, correct? And that line should be pretty much almost done. I think that was almost eliminated after I got hired in 1990.
Yeah, I think you actually, 93 was the cutoff.
Right, so there shouldn't be that many more employees that are still there.
There's nobody who could, basically now what happens is it's a workers' comp claim. However, those employees that were eligible for it, we currently have 9. I think I have 9 left. I currently have 9 active claims right now. Most of the claims are dormant. Most of the claims, there's no activity taking place, but they are employees that have put in claims. They are an open file. They probably they've never submitted for anything at this point in time, but they have, just to protect themselves, they have put in a claim. And at some point, they could either come back to the town because they have an open claim, or in a lot of cases, this is a survivor benefit, so they're survivor. So they pass away from hypertension or a heart attack or some health.
So even after retirement, they can come back?
Right. So they could come back, and as long as they have a claim right now. So yeah, they could come back, and their survivor could come back. So I hate to put it this way, but until their survivors are gone,
You have to keep it going.
you have to keep it going.
Thank you.
Questions on benefits? I do want to circle just back for 1 second and something that Kathy just said. The pension, that 400,000 increase. So this is it state policy, did you say? Or was it, who'd that come from?
This is from basically this is from it's almost, I hesitate putting it this way, but it's technically it's a best practice. It's not, you're supposed to fund there's no state policy or state law on it, but basically the practice is that you get a valuation report either once or twice, either every year or every other year, no longer than that, every other year. And you basically should fund, or it's not a must, it just should fund based on what the valuation says. If you don't fund based on what the valuation says, then you may not get a clean audit report. Your plan could be subject to underfunding. Your next valuation that comes along will cite that you didn't do it, and you start having to submit all types of reports to everybody and their brother, explaining why you didn't fund it that. And
I'm not recommending that, but this changed drastically from the last time, evidently.
Yeah, this changed, and again, the primary reason, 90% of it was because of the change in the mortality tables.
Okay.
There are some other factors there. I mean, we do a 5-year averaging on our investment returns, and that protects us in bad years, looks like we're heading towards. But it also holds down our investment returns in good years.
Yes.
We had a situation where 5 years ago we had a very good year, or 6 years ago we had a very good year. And last year we had a so-so year. Last year we had a 5%, I think the auditor said the other day. I don't think it was right, but it was like a 5% return. But 6 years ago, we had a 13% return.
Right.
The 13% dropped off, the 5% came on. So when you're smoothing, suddenly your return, that return was maybe 8%, well now it's maybe 6%.
Yeah.
Because you dropped off a good year, you added on a mediocre year. That impacts the liability also.
Okay.
So I mean, there are little things like that. And the other thing, you do have a mature plan. The amount of contributions going in from because their plans are closed, the amount of contributions going in from the employees are dropping off as people retire, and it's not being replaced by the new employees. So, and that alone, it will also add to your contribution, because whoever those employees were contributing, that's not being made up now, it has to be made up by the town. So, again, there are several factors.
Yeah, and I know we've always been pretty good at making sure our assumptions were proper, and we were therefore funding it properly, because we don't want to get in the situation that many states and municipalities and cities are in of underfunding the pension. That's why, when you bring up, is this a place we want to take away from and not fund, that is, I think most of us have mentioned at some point in time, that's something we're a little concerned about. So anyway, any other questions on benefits? Hearing none, we have a motion on the table and seconded to tentatively approve pages 66 and 67. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, our
So
next.
should we, sorry, CJ. Should we also make a note in terms of pages to return to this page?
Yes, good point.
Thank you, Edward. So what page is that?
39,
66.
66.
Yeah, 66, yeah.
All right, Joe, what page are we on next?
Debt service, 68.
68.
I make a motion to tentatively approve page 68.
That's it.
Yep.
Second.
Well, you can see this is a nice page.
Yeah, that's what threw me off.
So our debt service has not increased, as we wrote in the narrative. You guys have been involved in it. it's an increase of $4,000 or 0.04% from the previous year. This is a very small increase, and it's a result of the drop-off of debt, which was refinanced in 2015. And after we've been doing all our forecasting and everything that's been going on, Joe has been doing a great job of managing our debt and planning for the future. And this is one of the outcomes that we're not having an increase in debt this year.
Questions on the debt service?
Yeah,
Brian, yes.
Just one question. I'm just wondering if with the drop in the Fed, is there an opportunity for refinancing any of this to save money?
Actually, that's a great question, and I have a very disappointing answer.
That's not what I was looking for.
You got it. That's like...
Believe it or not, I'll try to be really quick on this. 2 weeks ago, just before I got hit by the town manager's office flu. I had a proposal to refinance some debt, and our financial advisor actually had a very unique idea. He said rates were so low. We have this clean water fund debt from 2018, and it's a 2% loan. And he said we could refinance this. We could repay this advance. We could pay this off, refinance it at a lower than a 2%, and you could save about $1 million. And I was like, I never heard of refinancing clean water fund debt. It's technically not refinancing, it's basically advancing, just paying it off, prepaying it. He says you could save $1 million. So on my deathbed, I called him.
So dramatic.
I had a conference call with our bond counsel and our financial advisors, and we found that there was a problem with the proposal. Because of the situation, there's a lot of technicalities, but we couldn't do it. We'd have to pull some strings to do it. So I talked to our legal counsel yesterday, and we came up with some strategies. And then today, I got an email with an article attached from the bond buyer, and it said that even though rates have dropped dramatically, there's no market whatsoever for municipal debt. People are selling their municipal debt like crazy. They're trying to get out of it. They're trying to get liquid. People are panicking, and people are selling municipal debt just to have cash, unfortunately. So, no, the answer is there's no market as of today for municipal debt. There's no opportunity to refinance. We actually were going to do a bond sale in May for some authorizations that we have out there, and I've actually told bond counsel and financial advisor we will look at postponing that to July. So there's just, we were ready to go. I had visions of coming to you in a couple of months and saying, guess what, I got less than 1% for 20 years, and right now I understand that, I don't know who they were, but not Connecticut towns, but 3 AAA rated issuers yesterday could not give their debt away.
Really?
Wow.
Always subject to change, though.
Yes,
I mean-
we're always looking,
Yeah.
always looking. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions on the debt page? Hearing none. We have a motion on the table, seconded to tentatively approve page 68. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but I think we've gone through all the expenditures.
We've gone through the general fund, we still have the refuse collection.
Okay, refuse. The brown tab in the back. That would 69 through 71.
Making motion to tentatively approve pages 69 through 71 refuse collection landfill.
Second.
Again, if you go on the page before 69, this is again an enterprise where you have the revenues and the appropriations, and Joe can go through it a little bit more in detail, but just as you can see, our appropriations are our landfill, our collection, our disposal, our hazardous waste, for a total appropriation of $1,798,000. And then on the revenue side, we have the fees, prior year collection, delinquent fees, interest, other revenues, and fund equity for the same number. because we're trying, obviously balancing the budget. For our waste collection fee, if you remember in my presentation, we're not making any recommendations to increase our our charge for garbage pickup. So this account is in good shape. I don't know if you have any questions about it. We'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions on pages 69 to 71? Hearing none. We have a motion to tentatively approve page 69 to 71. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Now, I think we've done that. So now, I think we should, you're still game. We should try to get through the revenue side. If everyone, I don't think it'll
Everyone good
take
with
too
that?
long.
It's not 10 o'clock.
All right. All right, so the revenues are, where are they in our budget? Is it?
Summaries.
So at the very beginning of the books, right after the summaries tab, we're starting, Joe, is this the page? We're starting on where it's general, and it says in the very top, general fund revenue, the account description, and the first one is property taxes.
Yep.
Is everyone there?
Yep.
Okay. So these are our revenues on the budget. Overall, our revenues are up, right, Joe, by 3.42%? Oh, why is it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Look, revenues are up 3.42%.
Right.
Non-tax revenues are actually down. If you look on that, the page before the summary tab at the tax and levy worksheet. You look under the section that says revenues, they're down 3.85%. The primary driver of that is the fund balance appropriation. For those of you who were on the council last time around, you may recall that you actually appropriated fund balance twice. You appropriated $700,000 during the budget process for the Parsons purchase. And then early in the fiscal year, you appropriated another $199,000 from fund balance to put towards the high school project. So technically, you appropriated just shy of $1 million from fund balance, and we're proposing no appropriation from fund balance for next year, so that's really what's driving revenues down. Just on a category by category basis, skipping over the property taxes for now, the licenses and permits are projected to be up 3%. That's building permit primarily driven revenue. We pretty much plateaued with our building permits. We're in that $600,000 to $700,000 range. So we are proposing a slight increase for next year, about $20,000. Fines and penalties is down. The big driver there is we get reimbursed by the state for fines through the state court process, and those numbers have, for some reason, we're not quite sure why, have been decreasing. That used to be up high, about $30,000 a year. Right now, we're projecting this year $18,000, and carrying that forward to next year. Interest earnings, of course, this number was put up before, or put out there before the last 2 weeks. Rates are dropping dramatically right now. We boosted this because we had 2 good years of rates, and the 675 for next year, it'll be a struggle, but I think we'll get there or get close to it. State and federal grants, we budgeted the governor's proposal plus we made sure that whatever the governor proposed in his budget, and as long as it matched what we have for this year. So we do see a slight increase there, and that slight increase is primarily in the equalized cost sharing. A couple of grants here that I should point out. The police grants, $74,000, halfway, almost 2/3 of the way down that section under state and federal grants. Police grants, that $74,000 is money that the chief talked about we get from the state for having the regional dispatch. We get about $100,000, and the arrangement we have is that $74,000 goes towards the cost of one of the dispatchers, and $25,000 goes back in for equipment for the dispatch center. So we get about 100 total. 74 comes back into this budget. The account below that, the Fire Safer grant, That's the reimbursement for the firefighter. So that thank firefighter. That will be going away probably the year after this year. We'll have it for 2021. Year after that, it'll pretty much be gone. And then the other increase there is the equalized cost sharing grant. That is projected. That it's a hard one to peg these days. We were slated to have that phased out over the next 3 years, and it's actually, instead of being phased out, it's actually been increasing. So that actually is what's driving the increase in that account there. Charges for services is down. A couple of areas that are down. The tower space rental, we rent spaces on our radio tower, our communication towers. A lot of the mergers and consolidations that are taking place. We're seeing some of our contractors who have merged with other contractors. When you have two on the same tower, one of them doesn't want to be on the tower anymore. So they're not renewing their contracts, or they're buying them out, or they're canceling them out. That's probably something that going forward we should possibly get a consultant to come in and help us with that. Either market that so we can get more people on the towers, or maybe get better contracts with our remaining carriers. So that's one of the decreases. The other decrease is in the police services. That's going down slightly, 255 to 229. That's a couple of things. One of them is the West Farms Mall. The majority of that money is West Farms Mall. They reimburse us for a police officer. They also reimburse us for some other incidentals with the police officer. That also is the payment from Burlington. Burlington pays us about $25,000 a year for us doing their dispatch. So, and then there's some smaller dollar amounts in there for various miscellaneous revenues. So that's basically charges for services. On the next page, other assessments, other revenues. We have a new account called other assessments, $450,000 for next year. It's time. We're going to start, once the WPCA project is now closed out, we're doing our final loan closeouts with the state of Connecticut for the Clean Water Fund. And starting next, we believe next August is when we slated it. We'll start charging the participating towns for their share of the cost of the upgrade to the treatment plant project. We estimate right now, based on preliminary numbers, that'll be approximately $450,000 to $500,000 a year for the next 20 years. So that'll be their share of the cost of the project. We still have to go through some technicalities. We still have to. I'm sure we're going to be subject to audit by all. Once we send them the bills, I'm sure they're going to want to review the books, which is fine. We still have to close out the loan and get the final numbers on the loan cost to add into the reimbursement, and then we'll amortize their cost over 20 years and give them an amortization schedule. But again, we're looking at the $450,000 to $500,000 range. And then we have the Westwood's contribution, which basically we take surplus money from Westwood's golf course operations and put it back into the general fund to help offset the maintenance costs at the Westwood's golf course. And then the final one I mentioned before, the fund equity, the $999,000 this year, which we are not proposing anything for next year. And based on that, if you go back to the first page, under property taxes, there's 3 items there that are not mill rate driven. Basically, the delinquent taxes, interest and lien fees, and supplemental taxes have basically all flat for next year. So you take those, add them in with the other revenues. The difference between those revenues and what the proposed appropriation is requires that you have you raise taxes by $105,718,000, which is the mill rate on tax and budget rules fees.
So the revenue is actually in like course of history, these are actually pretty good revenues for us. We've had not a lot of drama with the state, knock wood, and we have our new revenue source with the assessments, which is really helping us out, which again is very positive because, again, when you use a fund balance and you don't get to use the fund balance the next time, you're short, obviously, that $1 million. So even being short $1 million of revenue, because we added the $450,000 in, our revenues look pretty good. So this is, again, I think a highlight of the budget, that the revenues are pretty stable for us.
Questions on the revenue pages? Joe, just remind me, there was the 700 transfer last year, and then you said it was $999. Was it $299 for the school?
$299.
Okay.
It's $299 plus the
Great. Okay.
plus the 700,000. $299 payment
Plus-
was in July or August,
Yeah.
and the 700,000 was part of the original budget process.
Okay. And the state fortunately has come through and said they're still supporting all the municipal aid. That was a great thing that came through.
Yeah, so
we
far.
knock on wood, yes.
Our aid has been coming in on target this year. I think one of the things, I think I mentioned it when we did the forecast a couple of months ago, the state is really, most of our grants are formula-driven grants, and you're supposed to apply formula factors to them. And back in the final years of the previous administration, the legislature actually started specifically saying in the budget how much each town was getting, and it kind of like took the formulas out of play. So we've been getting basically whatever the legislature says we should get, regardless of what the formula says we should get. So it's actually been working to our advantage the past few years.
It's got to work to our advantage sometime.
Was there any correlation to the formulas and what we were told we were going to get, or it was just, was there any correlation between the formula, the actual formulas, and actually what we were told we were getting? Any reasonable correlation?
Yeah, basically what it ended up being is at some point in time, we got that money based on the formula, and then the next year, the formula, because they're formula-driven, factors each year will change.
Yeah.
Will change your grant. So one of the big ones that you see would be, for example, the pilot for state property. It's based on a formula. It's based on factors that you give them, basically your value of your property and the loss on that value. But it's also prorated. You're basically they take the value of every town in Connecticut, they put it into a pot. They say, okay, it's $10 billion that people are losing. We're going to say it's $100 million everybody's losing, but we only have $45 million. So everybody's going to get a prorated share of that. But if you have an increase, say somebody revalues, and so their percentage of state property increases versus yours staying flat, they would get more money, you would get less money. And those types of factors, or that type of variable, was pretty much taken out of it. So those numbers probably were tied to some formula calculation that was done 5 years ago. And if you were to run those formulas again this year, you probably would have seen, we may have gotten some increases, we may have gotten some decreases.
So would you like to?
I got one more.
Okay.
Joe, can you just, over the interest earnings again, 28.6%. So I'm going to try and ask this question. This percentage change was due to the market doing very well?
Interest rates going
Interest, right.
We can only, operating money, for budget money, we can only invest.
So much, right?
Well, we can only invest in certain types of things. We can't invest in the stock market. We can invest in money markets, CDs, treasuries, things like that. So what's happened was over the past couple of years, as the Fed started increasing interest rates, the banks were forced to increase. We were getting less than 1% for many years. About 2 years ago, about two and a half years ago, rates started to creep up. And there still is not a lot of competition for money. There's still not a lot of lending going on, unfortunately. But banks were needed to have some reserves, so they were trying to get our money.
Yep.
And so basically what happened is we started to see rates move up to the 2% range. Some banks actually went over 2%. What's happening now is everybody's starting to pull back with that last rate cut, that surprise rate cut. Well, one, the demand just wasn't there, and then the surprise rate cut came from the Feds. But now banks are starting to pull back again. So we actually experienced, in 18-19, we had $760,000 in interest earnings. This year, even with the rate pullback right now, we're still looking at about $850,000 in earnings. I didn't want to go to 850, recognizing that things were starting to turn. We didn't want to go up to 850 or even to go to the 760 from last year. So we pulled back to the 675 level.
Yeah.
And again, based on what's happening right now, even the 675, it's going to take some work to do that. The other problem we're running into, and this is actually more of a concern because it's to deal with our policy of safety over return, is a lot of banks are going away. There has been a very quiet, and it's not like the old days where you hear these mergers, but starting with the Farmington Bank merger with People's, and a lot of the banks that we've done business with are now consolidating. We've actually lost, probably in the past 6 months, we've probably lost 4 banks because they consolidated with other banks. Farmington we used to have People's and Farmington separate. Now Farmington is People's. Then People's went out and bought another bank that we were doing business with, so that bank went away.
Yeah.
We looked at another bank. We actually came to the council, had them approve us to do business with them, and then they were bought by a different bank. So at one point we were using 7 or 8 banks. Now I believe now we're down to 5 banks that we're using, and not all those banks are. Some of those banks are what I call safety banks. We have a policy. We don't go over 20% of our idle cash in any one bank. So once we hit that 20% mark, we look for another bank to put money into. And we've stretched that because it is difficult, but what we're using is the state has a short-term investment fund. They have a fund that by state law we can invest in. It's a much more aggressive fund than what the banks can do. And it has a pretty good rate of return. So basically what I've directed to the staff is, when you hit that 20% threshold, you have to find some place to put it into the STIF account, even if we go over the 20% on the STIF, because they do have a line of credit against it if they should ever have a problem. We can draw against the line. We won't lose our money. There's more safety there than with the bank, and there's a better return.
All right, thanks, Joe. That cleared that up for me. Thanks.
But I had another question for me. The state account, is there a limit on how much we can put in there from the state's point of view? And is the state, they're giving you a line of credit versus whatever you've put in there? So you can't lose money in it?
Yeah, they have a line of, they have billions of dollars in it. Yeah. It's open to any municipality plus the state of Connecticut. The state puts their money in there. And so what they did is back in the 2008, 2009 time frame when there was a lot of difficulties going on, they, in order to keep people's confidence in them, everybody lost money back then, and they lost money. We didn't lose money. We all sweated a lot, didn't sleep a lot, based on concerns. But they, in order to ease our concerns, they basically said, here, we're going to put a letter of credit against the investments that are in here. So when we do have a loss, we'll have a letter of credit to draw back down on and make you whole for whatever you put in here. You may lose some interest earnings, but you will get your money back, your principal back.
If they're generally giving better returns than the banks, what's the downside to putting more money in that fund?
Again, it's just concentration. There's not a lot of downside. We like to put money in banks because we like to keep some of the banks happy because we do other stuff with them. Sometimes, a lot of banks charge fees for services, and we use several banks for for mundane services, writing checks, things like that, black box services, writing checks. So in order for us to keep our fees down with them, we put money in their bank. And they give us a return on that, but they also offset their fees with that. So, there are actually times to put almost all their money in STIF. you can do that. But one of the other things is you'll often get a bank that will try to compete. Nobody's going to compete with STIF because they have the ability to invest in things banks can't invest in. Can't invest our money in. It's kind of unfair. It's an unfair advantage that they have. But at the same time, you will get a bank that will need money, so they'll say, well, STIF is offering 2, so I'll offer you 1.85, something like that, and that just helps us.
All right.
But again, our overall concern is just safety of the money. We just don't want to. We don't chase return. We try to keep everything safe. It's nice to get return, and we set a target every year of what we'd like to see come in. But I'm not gonna go to no bank Y if they don't have good. If they're offering me 5%, but they're shaky, I'm not going to them.
Sure. Good. Thank you.
Just following up on that, I'm just curious, is the STIF FDIC insured or no? No. Okay, so that's a kind of a difference there. Yep. You're just kind of banking on the solvency of the state of Connecticut. Yeah.
Very little of the money. You can see it in the audit report. There's actually a comment in the audit, not a comment from the audit, there's a comment from the notes to the audit. Very little of our funds are FDIC insured because of the limit. It's a $250,000 limit per bank. And we're talking, $20 million. So our first $250,000 is protected. Banks do have a requirement. They have to pledge collateral. If they take public deposits, town deposits, government deposits, they have to pledge collateral to back those deposits. They have a ratio they have to back. So it's basically, I think it's like for every, they have to have the collateral 10% for total deposits they have. The only problem with it is they don't pledge the collateral in the town's name. They put it into a pool account. It's available to everybody. So if the bank does go, have difficulties, financial difficulties, there is collateral out there, but not the full value, and it's not pledged in your name, so you're going to get in line with everybody else to fight for it.
I saw that movie.
So that is the revenues, right?
So I guess we will, what was our motion?
Did you do a TA for the revenues?
We did not. We did not.
Wow, we just had a nice chat. Now we have to start over.
Yeah. So a TA for,
You want me to do a
revenue,
TA? All right. Tentative approval for pages.
I just
revenue.
call it
Just
the
revenue.
revenues.
All right. Tentative approval for the revenue pages.
Second.
We've had discussion. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, so if you start at your first page, you have your tax and budget worksheet. You can look, starting at the very beginning in the expenditures. We went through the education budget yesterday. We just went through the town budget. We went through the debt service. We went through the capital improvements. The CIP Parsons purchase we no longer have. The one thing we didn't talk about is the Board of Ed defined contribution. That we've increased by $10,000. As you remember, the board has now started a defined contribution plan. We had people that are new to the council. We are uncertain as a council, as a policy directive of where we're going to put that money. And so last year it was decided that that money was going to be put on this front page. You probably remember in your strategic plan, there is a goal to work with the Board of Education to determine where that should go, whether it should be funded on the town side or the board side. The town does fund the pension, the typical pension, not the defined contribution of the Board of Education, so it is on our side. So there's a lot of debate back and forth about where it should go. So there's no reason why Joe and I discussed that it can still stay here, and then we can have a committee and discuss in the future where it will go. So last year, you remember that we had a large, because the teacher's retirement, it was the big top topic that the state was going to shift the teacher retirement. So that was in here last year too. That's where we got the $200,000, which we transferred to the school system, to the building committee. So that's where, so 40,000 goes to 50,000, and that's the number underneath the teacher's retirement. It looks like, I think Joe told me, is that number, whatever it was, I think it was, why we have $6 left.
It was $250,006, and we moved, again, the previous council last July moved the $250,000 up to the capital improvements account to give to the high school building committee. And we neglected to give them, the motion did not say the $6. So that's
I think Ed and I wanted the $6.
I think we did 250, right, instead of 256, so that's why there's $6 left there. We've talked about the grand list. That's the grand list, up at 0.84%. We went through the revenues today, so there's the revenues. You see our tax levy, our mill rate, our percent of change is 0.92. So right now you're looking at a 3.30% tax increase, and that's where you are today. So my recommendation, now that it's 8 o'clock, we've gone through everything that we need to go through. So starting on Saturday, you would start discussion about the accounts and where you want to go. And I know that you've asked me, and Eric, you asked yesterday to the board, I can come up with a priority list for the capital. And you mentioned yesterday a priority list of if I was going to cut $150,000 more out of the budget, I can do that. That was mentioned yesterday. And I'll have that if you need it. But I'd like to see us go the other way.
And the 150. I'm going to be here till 5. The 150 was what we were asking about to offset the 150 going to the pension.
Right.
Right. Okay. Are there any questions, directions, guidance we should be giving to the town manager right now before we leave this meeting? Yes.
The only thing I will say, and we've done this in the past, not with you, is that I will put a list together. I ask that we keep that list. I will not publicly speak about that list unless you ask me to do it, because as I've discussed with you, the only reason why I have kept the pension out is because we're really at the bare bones, so it's going to, what the cuts I'm going to make could affect people and things like that, and unless you guys are really thinking about doing that, I don't want to start a lot of chaos.
I think, and my intent, and I'll see if I can get consensus here, is to start looking at the capital, because the capital of this entire budget seems to be the place that is the largest increase that doesn't have a readily explainable reason for it.
Yep.
So I think if we work to attack that tomorrow and see where we are standing after we deal with capital, then we go into the operating. I know we had conversations with both the town side and the Board of Education side on where the operating budget came in, hearing different reasoning behind where they were, but I think we'll have that conversation. I'd like to start with the capital if everyone feels that's a good place to start, and then we may or may not have a further discussion.
And I'll have it available, and we can start at the beginning, but I don't want to give the list out publicly.
That's fine.
Okay. And
we'll see if we need to go to that space or not once we work on the capital and figure out how we pare that number down to a little less than a 26.67%.
And Joe will have this tax and budget worksheet will be up on the screen.
We have that great chart.
We'll have the screen, and then
the magic happens on the wall.
And so we'll be able to do that. We start at 9 o'clock. I'll bring in some breakfast. We could have standby to order lunch later on, if you feel like.
Can we have some sandwiches?
Left over.
That's incentive to do our work. Wednesday sandwiches. Yes, Brian.
I have one question for Joe. Since we're talking about, the grand list and everything, are there any adjustments we can make to our debt service, at least for next year, that might put off some of our debt to make an adjustment? Is there something that we should be considering there, or are there options we should be looking at? Since we can't make so many adjustments to our revenue, can we adjust the debt?
I am looking at some options.
Okay.
I have been exploring some ideas, and hopefully we'll have some options for you on Saturday.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And keeping in mind, one of the reasons we were looking at that 3% number was when Joe was giving us his recommendations on what we could afford with this project and what we thought we could absorb as a town with the least impact, that 3% look back was what we felt we could be doing going forward, which is why our targets were below 3% to let the public feel comfortable that we're not just trying to live to the limit, we're trying to stay below and do what we need to do in preparation of. Any other comments? Do we have any executive session?
No executive session. And that's
Okay.
it.
Just a brief comment to the public with the schools being closed down starting Monday for 2 weeks. Please be safe, wash your hands, social distancing, try not to touch your face. We've all been doing it here all night. Clean your hands before you touch your face. And I will leave you with a comment from Cicero tonight, yes?
And look at, keep on, the website is updated both on the school side and on the town side.
Right.
That's a good way to
And
try to keep on
yes.
getting information.
Good point. The town website as well as the school website, if there are any changes in the town, but the town is open for business at this point. So,
as of today.
So tonight's quote from Cicero is, "The safety of the people shall be the highest law." With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?